if you get COVID, you have a 50% chance to go to the hospital. No one's ever said that.
People, they believe that because of the media that they consume.
It doesn't matter if people believe something. It matters who is presenting that information.
It matters if they fucking believe it or not.
It does matter a lot. Hold on a minute.
No, it matters how you get there. Some people can believe something because they take things too far. It matters who is presenting the information.
All right. And you know what? We're just in time. I love this new series. Like, it's been 2 or 3 episodes where we're starting like 6 p.m. Everyone is ready. So thank you for that. And welcome to this brand new episode of Hippy Dippy Recruitment. Let's go over the rules real quick. So first of all, if you hear a French accent, that's me. And when I speak, no one else speaks. I won't give my take. I don't speak to give my take. I will speak only to moderate. So that's rule number 1. Rule number 2, nothing TOS. Obviously, we all want to keep our platform, and someone just dropped. We all want to keep our platform, so obviously nothing TOS. Respects everyone's identity, whether you're a pumpkin or you're not, you know. And yeah. So the show will go like this. We got one fun topic to start, one serious topic in the middle, one fun topic to end. For each topic, you're going to have opening and closing statement. Do not interrupt other people during opening and closing. If you want to speak, I will raise your, if you want to speak and you see that you can jump in, that there's a back and forth going on and everything, raise your hand. I will give you a little thumbs up and everything. Keep that as a last resort. I want you to jump in by yourself as much as possible. Beside that, there's one I always forgot. I had it in mind 2 seconds ago, but yeah, I think that will do for now. If it comes back, I will tell you. Let's go over a quick round of intros, starting with Binks. How are you doing?
Hey, what's up? I'm Binks, filling in. I'm no Skanky, but I'll do my best. I'm here to say TOS things and disrespect people's identity. I hope I came to the right place.
You came to the perfect place. Also, where can people find you?
They can find me on twitch.tv/Binks_BB.
All right. I'm going to throw it to HoodieVolp. How are you doing?
I'm good. So I am HoodieVolp on all socials. I talk about politics, play some video games, newly rising TikTok star. So follow me on TikTok, and I'll yell at you in the comments.
Nice. I'm going to throw it to Buns.
Hey, I'm Bance, or Heather, either works. I'm Bance Ferdinand on YouTube and Twitch. And Twitter.
All right. I'm going to throw it to SleeveTRocks. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. My name is SleeveTRocks, and I am commonly referred to as a rocker boy with violence on my mind. Anti-corporatist. I generally believe that corporate influence is one of the most destructive things in the modern society. I'm going to go over some of the reasons why I believe that contributes to hyperpartisanship in Congress right now. But I'm happy to be rocking out on Hippy Dippy today. Glad to be here.
Hell yeah. Happy to have you on board. Olaketv, how are you doing? Happy to have you back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back. And I'm doing well. So I'm Olake, and you guys can find me on YouTube at Olake, or you can find me on Twitch at Olaketv. I think I also have Olaketv is also used for my Twitter if you guys want to see that. I mostly just retweet what my betters say because I'm not that funny, apparently. Or maybe I'm too funny and nobody gets me.
All right. I'm going to throw it to the pumpkin, the myth, the legend. How are you doing?
Hello, my name's Ryan. I run the American Tribune on YouTube, the only source of reliable information on the internet and in the world. And yeah, please feel free to check out if you want to see more of my stuff.
All right.
I didn't get my intro. You can see me at SleeveTRocks on Twitch.
All right.
Just threw that in there.
And Chris.
Hello, folks. My name is Chris A. I'm a YouTuber. I do not stream on Twitch yet. You can find me at youtube.com/XHRISA. It's just Chris A, but with an X. I talk about movies, music, mathematics, and lefty politics.
All right. Sorry, was getting some news from CTV on stream. Apparently, he's gonna have problem to joining us tonight, but that's okay.
I was really looking forward to getting screamed at by him.
Yeah.
He's become the champion. The champion has become too big for us.
I know, right?
The line. Pass it up to Dylan.
Exactly. Yeah. They get the belt, and that's it.
You know, they CTV clout.
Champion got scared of the pumpkin mask.
Yeah. They forget where they come from.
He did.
Sad. Anyway,
forget the roots every time. Fuck.
Let's jump into the first topic, which is a fun one. All right. So, our smartphone making us stupid. All right. With that, I'm going to start with Chris.
Are smartphones making us stupid? I think that's not a question we can just say yes or no to. And I think the like best example we can kind of approach this from is the calculator, because you know, maybe you're not as good at your mental math because you've got a calculator in your pocket, but now you have a tool that you can use that can help you do more advanced kind of math stuff. So I don't think it's making us dumber. I think it's just another set of tools that can help us do bigger and better stuff.
All right. Bonds.
I don't think it's making us stupider, but I feel like a lot of us are losing certain social skills. I think a lot of folk had this over the pandemic, where actually interacting with people in real life has become a bit of a hassle. And I think it's also gotten us used to certain standards of communication that weren't there before, like instant messaging. I don't know if that stuff's entirely healthy, but I don't know if it's making us stupid either.
All right. CTV, welcome back.
Thanks, Mr. Geek. How you doing, sir?
Doing good. How are you?
Oh, it's always a day in the neighborhood, ain't it?
Hell yeah.
I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm doing pretty good. I got a beautiful wife that cooked me a very, very nice meal for dinner tonight. And, you know, hopefully I've got the system set up now to where we're not going to have any issues. Hopefully, if we do, but I suppose I'm going to have to switch to Overliable. We'll see.
This stream got way more patriotic just with your inclusion now.
Hell yeah. So CTV, we're jumping into the first topic. So I'm going to give you the mic to give us your intro and your take on the first topic, which is our smartphone making us stupider.
Okay, so first off, I am critically thinking better in the conservative main boss here on Twitch Politics. I am a self-described Christian American constitutional conservative. I definitely believe in the conservative use of government and people having more faith in their fellow human beings, and the ones that break that faith be punished to the fullest extent of the law. Now, with that said, I facilitate a community called the Infinity Acre Wood, in which the Wolf's Den resides, and the Wolf's Den is my home, right? So come over to the server. As long as you got respect about yourself, I'm more than happy to have whatever kind of conversations that you want. As soon as you show yourself to be a disrespectful, disingenuous little shit, though, you can expect me to bite your fucking head off. That said, I am the current, and I feel like the only legitimate Hippy Dippy champion now at this point. We've got Dylan Burns trying to delegitimize the franchise, you know, with his whole little, you know, spiel after the championship match. I don't know what the fuck that was about, right? Destiny lost because he went pro drug war. And as far as the first topic about smartphones making us stupider, I think that, yeah, I really feel like that smartphones, while very, very capable and unique devices here in the 21st century, because they don't come with instructions for how to critically think about the information you're taking in, leads to a lot of dumbassery, right? So, oh, well, I seen this article. It's got to be the truth. It's on the internet. Yeah, you're the fucking idiot that is the one that's making me say yeah right now if you do that. So I feel like when they're used, you know, for what they are, they can be very good tools to help you figure out what's going on in the world, but becoming solely reliant on them and not exercising your common sense rationale is ultimately what leads me to believe that they are, in fact, making people stupid.
All right. Give me a sec. SleeveTRocks. A smartphone making us stupider. Go.
You know, I actually like the common sense argument by CTV right here, because I think common sense does dictate that it does kind of make us, at the very least, more short-sighted. I think that a lot of us sometimes used to have a little bit more of an attention span, used to go outside, do more things, pay attention, be in the moment. So intuitively, it seems like smartphones do distract us from that with constant notifications. But I think that there's a more objective metric by which we can look at smartphones and why they make us dumber, which is the fact that they literally have companies that study the dopamine effects of these apps on the brain. They have companies like Twitter literally consult companies that maximize the amount of neural input that you get from these, and they make them as addictive as possible. So at first it might have been a kind of more altruistic message and mission of trying to connect the world. But by this point, it's literally like they've figured out how to give you drugs directly to your brain with all the apps. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make you addicted and keep your eyeballs on the screen as long as possible. As long as addiction is the primary driving force of these things, I just don't see it as like something that can make you smarter. That's my opinion.
All right, Ryan.
Well, to be honest, again, the smartphone is just another tool. Yes, it will make you dumb if you use it like a fucking dumbass. And also, we have to keep in mind that computers are also a thing, and to my knowledge, those aren't excluded from this. And so, from what I've seen, like half of the people criticizing overusage of smartphones are the same people that are playing OSU 8 hours a day, which I find pretty interesting.
All right, Volp.
Excuse me, sorry. I think that to the wrong person or in a specific person's hands, it has the potential to become like a highly addictive, like escape from reality or whatever you're doing. But I don't think you can discredit its value in terms of the access to information that it provides. We're in an age now where literally everything is on the internet. You can see things firsthand without having to be near them. So that undeniably has value. So I think that if you, like, kind of to what Sleeve said, there's definitely some merit to that, I think, but you can't deny that it's a useful tool.
All right. Olake.
Yeah, I don't think smartphones have made anybody, like, I don't think it makes people intrinsically dumber. I mean, it's a tool that everybody uses, so it's how you use it. I mean, by this metric, books have made people stupider because before you needed to memorize everything. So, now you don't. Now you can abstract your memorization into books and come back later and read it. But arguably everybody here would agree that books in fact do make you smarter, or do make people smarter. So I think phones are the same. I mean, it's clear that some people use it. I think what people don't like is that it has changed what we consider to be intelligence. So people that could memorize a lot of phone numbers or that sort of thing would be considered more intelligent. But nowadays you don't need to memorize those things. So in some respects, it's changed what we consider to be important to validate our own intelligence, if that's the word. And of course, certain people are going to use it and they're going to, be obsessed with their phones and all of that. But clearly, any tool in existence can do that. People being on a bike is the same thing, right? Does being on a bike make you less athletic? It's hard to know. I mean, these are just tools, and how people use them is not really indicative of what they're meant to be.
All right. Last but not least, Binks.
I think it's great. I think phones have made us much smarter. Like the other guy said, like you can literally, like, why read a book? You can just listen to a podcast. Like you're connected to like billions of people every second of the day. It's great for your mental health. It's we know more about politics than ever. We're all smarter. You can just get your opinion from the opinion machine on Twitter. It's great. It's 100%.
Perfect. And before we jump into the topic, I just wanted to remind everyone, if you're all here, it's because you got an invite from Danabo, who's doing a wonderful work behind the scene. So please go show some love. Twitch.tv/Danabo. And also shellshockcbd.com, code Danabo for 10%. Anyway, our smartphone making us stupider. The floor is yours. You can engage.
Real quick, hold on. Before we even get started, if your ass hasn't went to Shell Shock CBD and put in code Danabo for your 10 fucking %, you're a fucking idiot. All right, get back to the topic.
Smartphone, stupider.
There we go.
So yeah, I guess everybody's a big fan of the smartphone, huh?
The one thing that I would push back on a little bit is, are people complaining about the fact that people can use something stupidly? Because it's like, sure, Instagram and all that stuff, yeah, maybe we consider those things to be stupid.
Well, that's not more my argument. I think my argument is more like it's designed to not have intelligent usage. It's designed to have addictive usage in a large portion. I mean, you can talk to like Jack Dorsey. He's talked about how he's consulted companies that literally their main focus is to make their product as addictive as possible. Not to make it as useful as possible, not to connect us as much as possible, just to make it as addictive as possible. And when addiction is a primary method, I really think that does damaging things to your brain, especially when it comes to attention span, because you're looking for shorter hits. What's wrong with addiction? I don't know. I mean, let's start. I think that addiction, first of all, makes you short-sighted, so you can't focus on your long-term goals in life, and I think that that's a damaging thing to your long-term health.
Why would I need to worry about long-term when I can just get a dopamine hit of like Twitter and YouTube? I don't know. Your argument is just not coherent, sir.
I mean, it depends on how long you want to live on this planet, I guess, or how much joy you want to get out of life. But I'd argue if you want to live a long time and derive a lot of joy out of life, that you should probably strive to have healthy life choices that get you to that finish line.
The problem that I would something might bring me joy that doesn't bring you joy. I might enjoy sitting on my computer for 8 hours a day and staring at a screen, and that it brings me all the joy I could ever possibly need.
Yeah, I could argue that
go get a blowjob.
No, those are fun too. But what I would argue is that things like are definitely. I think that one of the things that is missing from the smartphone revolution is simply like the long-term effect that you're able to have with engaging with things. I really think it gives you like too short-term an engagement with things, and I don't think that you can become just a deep, substantial human being when that's like what you're feeding into your brain. I think you have to give your brain a steady diet like you do your body.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you on this for the most part. But again, it doesn't change the fact that smartphones do provide a huge they quite literally provide to you a library of almost the entirety of the collective human knowledge. And well, again, we should be teaching people how to critically think and how to filter what's true and not, like CTV said. Thank you very much. But we can't really stop the addiction process. I mean, that's just a con, because that sets a very icky legal precedent if we try to restrict that.
Yeah, I guess I'm not arguing for it legally, more ethically. I think that they could design their products more ethically. But what it sounds like you just said is that you don't have as much of a problem with the smartphone as a technology. It's just that certain applications or certain usage of the smartphone could be abused. And actually, I think I'd probably agree with you there. I think the smartphone's a great invention. Obviously, it's cool I can hit up my friends. It's obvious that I can keep in touch with what's going on in the world. But I do think that the way that you have a computer in your pocket that's so powerful, that has been designed to trigger your dopamine so effectively, is a problem. So I don't agree with the apps, but I do with the cell phone. The cell phone itself can be a useful tool.
Yeah, I think that's CT made me change my mind. I'm switching sides because I agree with that. And also the Pumpkin Man said there's nothing we can do about it. China banned video games. Okay, it's working great for them. We should
exactly. Jeez, if you want to just turn the pipe off, you can do that.
I think there's an important distinction to be made here, because it sounds, Sleeve, like you're talking about social media, which I agree is a big part of how we use smartphones. But you could very easily have a smartphone and not engage in social media at all. And so I think I agree that I think social media is a huge part of how a lot of people do use smartphones. But I don't know if that's necessarily. I think social media is the problem in that case. That's what's making
let me pull the room on this.
It's not a smartphone, essentially. That's not.
Let me pull the room really quickly. How many people in here actually have their notifications turned off for all apps on their phone? Interesting. Okay.
Wait,
see, I think that's the problem, honestly, is that you have like a constant distraction. And I would argue that most of the apps that you have like coming as a direct feed to the front of your phone are not useful and don't aid your life.
Text messages turned off.
SleeveTRocks, do you mean turn off?
Yeah, but a notification isn't inherently a bad thing, right? Like, let's say you have an email and I get work emails or that sort of thing. like if you get work emails on your phone, then it's arguably a good thing, right? You know.
Well, we're talking about work emails versus social media. He was specifically talking about social media.
Well, so SleeveTRocks. So I'm actually going to have to stop you there. Were you talking about ringers or
Go ahead, Pumpkin King. Let me hear it.
Ringers or actual notifications in general? I want to clarify that first before.
I mean, like the actual like push notifications that go to the front, not like vibrate or like ring or anything like that. When it comes to like Instagram, Twitter, that kind of stuff, how many of you turn that off when it gets pushed to your phone?
Because
I do, but like you said, all notifications, so I said no.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, we were talking about social media. Maybe I should have specified a little bit more narrowly. Yeah, and when it comes to social media applications, do you turn all of your notifications off?
Yes. I mean, I keep Twitter on because I got to know what the bangers, which ones are doing numbers. So
well, naturally. But I would argue, like I said, they're designed to capture your attention. They go straight to the front of your phone whenever they want to capture your attention. I'd argue that that's probably a bad thing.
Yeah, that's why I have my phone set to where the only notification I get is if my wife actually calls. If she sends me a text message, I don't even get that, right?
You're big time, of course. Listen, you're big time now, CTV. I mean, you're a champion and all that. You don't got time for the plebs, so I get it. But come back to the real world with all of us.
I've had my shit set that way for a fucking decade. Okay, so I was a champion long before I became the people's champion, and then now the Hippy Dippy champion, right? So like I just keep stacking on the list of accolades, but I ain't changed, right? You want my attention? You got to have my cell phone number. You ain't got my cell phone number. Matter of fact, I like I said, the only one that I get a notification for is her. Even my dad, when he calls, you go on the call wait list. I don't know what to tell you, bro.
Not even Danabo?
Especially not Danabo. Are you shitting me?
Yeah.
He's always trying to get me signed up for some shit. All right.
Okay, fair enough.
Putting social media aside, I think it's worth talking about this kind of instant access to virtually all of humankind's knowledge, and weighing that against social media, which is something that again we can kind of opt out of. I think there's obviously a very basic example of now when you're at the bar with your friends and you can't remember who was the actress in that one movie from 10 years ago, you can immediately find out. Mm-hmm. And I think there's probably a good deal of value to that would probably, in a general sense, make us smarter.
Well, if you're trying to remember actresses from...
But what I was going to say earlier is essentially, so I do have all of my notifications turned on. I just have ringer off. But like, I just take and usually I'm working on something of the sort, whether it be online shit, whether it be actual research projects and etc. But what I do usually, I just take a quick glance at what the notification is. If it's from someone that I actually consider somewhat important to talk to, or worth my time, or something worth my time that requires my attention, then yeah, I open it, and I pretty much have never regretted that process, except one or two times when it ended up being something fucking stupid.
This just sounds like somebody who's like, yeah, I only use on the weekends, guys. It's not a big deal. I'm not an addict. I only just occasionally use on.
I think Sundays. All of y'all are lying. Y'all all use notifications all the time. All of your notifications are turned on. I don't believe that shit. I don't believe anything y'all are saying right now.
So the problem is,
I just don't know how to turn them off. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I just don't get notifications. I'm just not fun. I'm not popular, so I don't get notifications. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
See, I think the notifications thing is actually a great example that Sleeve brought up, because I'll download like games that I'll play, just like little puzzle games, and if I don't play them enough, it will send me a notification unless I turn it off. The default is to just notify me, oh, hey, you haven't played your stupid little puzzle game in 24 hours. Why don't you play
your farm lately?
There you go. Yeah. I think those are not great.
What you're really getting at, though, is the issue when people talk about phones making people dumber and all of that. It's the idea that these applications, these tools, are then essentially socially engineered to make you dumber, right? They make use of addictive qualities. The same thing could be said of TV, right? TV could be a very intelligent thing if you were getting news, but we're literally going to go to this topic, and media nowadays doesn't really have that same interest anymore to educate in the same way that might be the most intellectually stimulating. They might be more focused on the socially engineered, shock pieces and things that can make people be excited. So it's one of those questions, I think.
I don't even know if it's more focused on that necessarily, just that there's so much more to access, that there's a lot more really great journalism than there was 20 years ago. But it's it's just, it's proportional to everything else. So, you're going to find just as much Kardashian TV.
I think more people get funneled into the sort of the garbage news, like the outrage clicks stuff, rather than getting taken to Reuters or whatever. They're taken to InfoWars because that gets a lot of engagement, a lot of interaction. So,
that's how it's designed, to kind of speak to Steve's point, I guess. It's like the whole nature of a social media algorithm is like to feed you what you enjoy or what it thinks you like. So like,
and what upsets you, because that's one of the most addictive things.
Yes.
You know how people,
that's a good point.
You see like social media, like sometimes like somebody sees like a comment or somebody who they don't know, and it's a point that they don't agree with, and they don't know this person at all, but they write them a novel about this point. They're like, oh yeah, well, blah, 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 point one, blah, 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 point two. And they're just like so engaged with someone they don't know. They don't even know if it's a real person behind there, but that's real engagement. And that's why these types of conflicts in politics are particularly like useful towards like big tech. And that's a very addictive tool that they use in their tool basket nowadays, I would argue.
Yeah, I actually do agree with you. Big tech has gone very much overboard, especially within the last decade. And I think the main reason is because there hasn't been really much competition for the like individual sector of big tech. Like for example, consoles and gaming consoles. The only comparator PlayStation has is Xbox. And I think that there should be a lot more limitation based on how large these corporations become.
Well, let me zone in on that. What kind of tech competition do you think would actually solve this problem in the now?
Well, I think also restricting the ability of social media companies to expand as well would hinder their ability to maintain a strong hold on the...
So you want to restrict social media?
Restrict the companies, not restrict social media.
You're talking about breaking up the monopolies, kind of?
Essentially, yes. Or rather, cucking the monopolies.
So you think if there were more companies that were like for example, Facebook owns WhatsApp, Instagram, and Facebook. If we broke up those three things, the market would be more fair in your view?
Yes.
How would that make people smarter?
Well, because if for example, Facebook has garnered a pretty infamous reputation, right? And a number of people I know, at least.
Wait, Facebook did what? You kind of
garnered a reputation.
Okay.
Infamous reputation.
Infamous. Okay.
Yeah. And a number of people, at least that I know, have stayed away from Facebook for that reason. But the funny part is, a lot of these people just go to Instagram sometimes, and Instagram is owned by Facebook. And it really shows that, and if these companies that got shut on for doing these shitty practices had competitors, then there would be more incentive to not engage in these shitty practices in general.
I mean, the problem that you're going to have with these type of statements is that one, that can be fundamentally true. Like, oh, okay, we shouldn't just use Instagram, but arguably that same thing exists today. So even if you break these companies up, there is the reason that social media really, coalesces around big companies is going to be due to the fact that they are social media. People want to be in a place that's very popular. Like, why would you want to go to an application that has 10,000 people versus the one that has 1 million people? Like, we see it every day when we talk about our own channels, right? Small channels have less people. They get less engagement because your community is going to be smaller by it. So I think there is this idea of, you want to break them up and try to figure that out. I don't think it intrinsically solves social media. That's why social media in and of itself is a very dangerous thing. It's why I think, yes, I broadly agree with people where I'm like, social media can in fact make people much dumber. I think by nature it makes you dumber, probably due to the fact that, again, it's not a place that really is based around the applications or that can be sort of regulated or even deregulated. It's just a place that fundamentally gets owned because of the fact that it's used by social engineering. It's always being damaged by the way that people use it, and having a group of people that kind of control it and run it just by the premise of them being on it will change everything.
I think something that's long term that could fix this would be like, not fix it, but at least like mend it a little, is like people having more media literacy and being able to understand like what they're reading, how to fact check something, that sort of stuff. Because a lot of folk are just
with that, yeah.
Because folk are just going to see a fucking outrage tweet and they're going to repost it because it made them angry.
The question we have to wonder about is, the question we have to wonder about is, do we think that people, especially the newer generations, are better about that? Like, we know very clearly that the older you are, older people, especially those who didn't grow up with this stuff, are extremely bad. Like, they get owned all the time. They have no clue. They're getting scammed continuously. They're just not good at these things. Now, clearly, Zoomer generations ideally should be better at it, right? People should be getting better and better at it. But it's also clear to us that they're some of the ones engaging in some of the more toxic behavior of like canceling people and just doing things. Like, there might be questions as to, do we believe that the younger generations are actually making use of that and I guess ideally improving the platform by having their premise and not being so easily scammed and
what do you think the appropriate punishment should be for somebody that engages in that kind of activity?
What kind of activity?
The kinds of activity that's like malicious online behavior, where you're trying to get somebody canceled, or you're DDoSing, or spamming packets, or
canceling, or DDoSing.
Any of these things.
I'm trying to.
What do you think an appropriate punishment is for malicious behavior online?
Okay. French. All right. I'm going to let everyone, this is a completely different topic. So before we go down to another segment, I think we're going to end this topic. If you want to answer CTV question, you can do it in your closing statement. And I'm going to start with Sleeve.
I like the dealer's choice element, honestly. I thought that was pretty fun. I'm sorry, which topic are we on right now, Mr. Geek? Yeah, it's an outro statement for this topic, basically. Oh, outro statement. Okay, cool. So I do think that throughout this wonderful conversation we've had, that we've kind of delineated that the tool that is a phone is very useful. However, the abuses usually happen with the development of apps and sometimes the malicious intent behind the attention span this app wants to have with you and its engagement towards its platform. So I think that the biggest problem right now is that they're consulting shady agents who are just trying to get you addicted to phone apps, just like drugs. I'd argue that having too much information, honestly, floods your brain so much that you don't have any at all by a certain rate. And that's usually just due to the fact that the information that they want to get you addicted to is generally not useful and is, as a matter of fact, the opposite, just meant to kind of stir up emotions in order to emotionally engage you with a platform. That's my problem with smartphones, and that's why I think smartphones honestly make most people dumb. And I think there is a lot of kind of hubris in the fact that people think they can outsmart a technology that has so many data points and is so hell-bent on hooking you on it. That's my opinion.
All right, I'm going to throw it to Buns.
Yeah, so I don't think smartphones inherently make you dumb, but I think more folks should delete Twitter, more or less. People should learn to double check, triple check their sources, go to reputable news sites, and just try and not fall for social media bullshit.
All right, Volp.
Excuse me, sorry. So yeah, I think that the tool, it's similar comparison, I think, to guns. The tool itself is not what's bad. It's the application, it's the user, it's whoever's designing it, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we need to Sleeve's point, because there's some valid points, is, as a consumer, you need to kind of understand and recognize that these things exist and try to steer away from them if possible. And maybe we should educate the youth about such things, because, you see kids with tablets shoved in front of their faces by the age of 1, and they're completely dependent on this dopamine and attention grabbing stuff that they're constantly seeing. So who knows what that's going to result in. But yeah, smartphones give you access to infinite amounts of information. So can't deny that.
All right. Olek.
Yeah, so I think, as we said, I don't see a lot of problem with some of the tools themselves. I see more a problem with the way that they're being applied by humans. So that's generally the problem that I have with the way the smartphones are. It's usually social media, in my view. That's kind of more the issue there, as opposed to the premise of phones. So I think that's been well said. I do think we were getting in some good discussion, so it was good to hear everybody talk about that. I did like looking outside of Mr. Geek Your House. It was pretty cool. I want to see that view. So that'll be the final statement.
There you go. I was trying to do it, but Chris.
Yeah, so tool neutral, social media pretty bad as it is right now. Break up the monopolies, find a way to make it cross-platform so that doesn't result in just a bunch of tiny platforms that no one wants to use. And media literacy, I think, is the most important thing. which we started to touch on, especially with younger kids, because they're growing up in a world where they can't not use this kind of technology.
Yeah. Ryan.
Yeah, so the technology itself, I don't feel like makes you dumb, but rather the shady social media companies, and we should be targeting those instead. And again, the effects of smartphones on a user all depend on the user, and personally, I think the benefits of accessing the entirety of collective human knowledge outweighs the cons in this case. And I think the main weapon we should be using to combat potential addiction and the cons of smartphones and social media specifically is teaching our youth on how to think critically and for themselves so that they can make smarter decisions.
All right. CTV.
Like I said to begin with, how you use the device matters more than the device itself. Much like, another tool that I have, right? Which is a Beretta 92FS, right? So this tool has a specific job, just like my smartphone, right, has a specific job. How you use it is what matters. And the fact of the matter is that whenever you've got, especially now, a generation of kids that have been brought up just being taught how to kind of use these devices, but not why, right, to use these devices, or the how to intake the information they're getting from it, is really like the crux of the problem. Common sense has kind of gone by the wayside because we've passed so many laws now that, you can't even ride a fucking bicycle without wearing a fucking helmet. Like, are you shitting me? So it's a everybody's got to be baby safed out for the fucking world. Make sure you have your helmets and your seatbelts on, right? You don't want to approach the world with any kind of risk at all, even though getting out of your bed in the morning is one of the biggest risks that you'll take.
Are you saying you don't wear a seatbelt?
Is this closing statements? Is this closing statements? Motherfucking SleeveTRocks? What are you thinking? Don't be talking during closing statements. Jesus. Geek, what kind of panels are these guys think they're on?
I don't know. Listen, people pull out guns and shit. Like, this is this kind of panel. All right, Biggs.
Yeah, that was first half of that was cool. The second half kind of just sounded like a bunch of commie gobbledygook. I didn't really pay attention. The calculator watch is the peak of human technology. We should have stopped after that.
True. And with that being said, this is the end of this topic. And before we jump into the next one, I just wanted to thank you all for being here today. Really appreciate it. So for everyone in everyone's chat, go follow our panelists. Whether you agree or disagree with them, go check out people outside of panels. Go check out their solo content and everything. Follow everyone, and if you like this panel, please give a follow to, first of all, CTV, who's here week after week and who's the main boss, main champion of the Hippy Dippy. Give a follow to me if you want to. Give me a follow if you want to see basically Hippy Dippy recruitment every Sunday, 6 p.m. EST, and also give a follow to Bings, who has been helping basically outside too. So yeah, thank you all for being here. And with that being said, let's jump into the next topic, which is sorry. All right, main topic. Who is responsible for the polarization of the Congress? Republicans, Democrats, or the mainstream media? And why? And also, can it be undone? And for this topic, we're going to start with Volp.
Oh, nice. So I hope that we can all come to an agreement that that these factors kind of all come together and influence each other. But I would like to set that the base problem is media, profit incentives, and what just gets clicks and what becomes poppin' in today's day and age. That drives everybody to do everything in Congress. They're essentially they're big public figures. Like, a lot of them want to be like celebrities or however you cut it. But then I think that the way the left and the right both interact with that beast is they do it in different ways and they exploit it in different ways. So I'm curious to explore and see where this conversation goes.
All right. I'm going to throw it to Binks.
Can you repeat the question?
Okay. The question is, who is responsible for the polarization of Congress, Republicans, Democrats, or the mainstream media, and why? And also, can it be undone?
Okay. The two-party system is responsible, and you should have voted for Ron Paul in 2008. This all be fixed, but you didn't. So now we have to deal with it.
Wow, strong words. I'm going to throw it to Ryan.
Yeah, so honestly, I think the mainstream media is at fault. Well, first I'd blame the two-party system, but I guess that wasn't one of the options, so I'm just going to blame mainstream media. And the main reason is because the billionaires which control these mainstream medias have had a history of sponsoring specific parties. And really, the sort of two-party system further pulls the voters apart from each other and causes these narratives that the mainstream media spreads causes greater polarization within the voters, and these voters essentially elect more polarized people into Congress. And I think the only way we can really stop this is to institute a culture of political discussion and implement greater political education within our schooling system so that we can teach our youth to think more critically on what information is right and wrong and how to think for themselves.
All right, I'm going to throw it to Buns.
So, from an outsider perspective, it's not news to anyone, but your guys' media is completely fucked. Like, it's unbelievable. The state of, like, US media. Like, living in the UK, something like Fox News or whatever would never even be broadcast because of our, like, neutrality laws on public broadcasting. I think it kind of touches upon the thing I was saying last question about how outrage is really profitable, and therefore painting Obama as like a communist or Joe Biden is a communist or whatever, that's profitable. That gets people going. That is it. Tucker Carlson is his name.
Yes.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, so these sort of outrage merchants, I think, are causing the polarization. But in terms of like actual Congress, it does seem like the Republican strategy since like 2010 has been to basically block anything and cause this gridlock intentionally. Like Mitch McConnell stated that pretty much word for word because he knows that's an effective vote winner. So I think... Yeah, I'd say that it's largely mainstream media, but the Republican Party and some of the Democrats have a huge part to play in this.
All right. I'm going to throw it to Chris.
Yeah, I'm going to have a different take than everyone, which is great. CTV, I like how you wrapped up the previous topic talking about how everyone has to be coddled now. I think that's a great segue into how our electoral system treats the Republican Party. The Republican Party is pretty dang unpopular. In my lifetime, we've had one Republican president win a popular vote, but we've had 3 Republican presidential terms. If you look at any given issue, abortion, taxes, healthcare, Republicans are on the losing side of things. This is due to anti-democratic mechanisms like the Electoral College, first past the post elections, gerrymandering. Some people said the two-party system. And of course, that's not even getting into active voter suppression efforts. And so despite the 60-40 split that we usually see when we actually look at how people feel about issues, Congress is much closer to a 55-45 split, or in the Senate, even like a 51-49. So my thesis here is that Republicans don't need to worry about winning elections fairly, because they have a disproportionate advantage given our electoral system. And because that, they are overrepresented in Congress, and because that, they're just less accountable to constituents, which means that they're going to be more prone to polarization. Can it be fixed? I believe it can. We just need a lot of election reform.
All right. Oleg, did you go?
No,
all right, perfect. Your turn.
All right, yeah. So I'll kind of piggyback on that. So the big issue that we generally have is that essentially in the 1970s, we had a big shift in the way that the Republican Party essentially wanted to govern itself. They were getting absolutely blown out because of Watergate. And you had a young guy, I think he was about 35 years old at the time. His name was Newt Gingrich, who decided, yeah, we're going to jump in and we're going to polarize everybody. Like, there's no point anymore. If you're not with us, you're against us. Moderate, Bob Dole-like Republicans are absolute garbage. And it essentially ended up being a generational shift in the way that Republican politics ended up working. It wasn't one of what used to be a sort of working together. Now, it didn't mean that people were always agreeing. Of course not. But it did mean that there was at least some level of that. And they really decided, no, we're just not going to do that anymore. Now, so I think it's very clear to see that, like, that's where it comes from. And yes, there's a media apparatus. Of course, Fox News, was the trailblazer there. AM radio shows were the trailblazers of this. But they essentially decided, yeah, we're going to piggyback on this. We're going to do this. We're going to make sure we're part of this polarization effort. And yes, you're seeing the left sort of go down that path. Social media sort of also done that as well. It's very clear, though, that what makes it so bad in the United States is the fact that our electoral system is so fundamentally broken. It just absolutely gets destroyed by polarization. As I think, as you said it, Chris, you had said it was pretty easy. Like the idea is that you can now win. You don't need to win the popular vote anymore. You can just literally still be elected. And the idea is that maybe in a place like the UK or maybe in a place around the world where you have a more representative form of government, yes, you can polarize, but those votes get split apart to the different parties. There isn't a Republican Party that just absorbs all of the conservatives. There would be a Republican Party that has the moderates. There would be some sort of far-right authoritarian party which has the hard-right people. And essentially, you would have more representation because people would fracture into the parties that best represent them. And so if we were to fix this, arguably the only way we could fix this, I don't have this dream of like make people less partisan. I don't see how that would essentially work. I think it would be much more realistic to have election reform in which you do essentially try to blunt how damaging partisanship can be. And I think, when we look at our political system today, you can see all the failures of it right now.
All right, CTV.
Good evening, Hippy Dippy. Allow me first to explain to you how we got into the situation. Back during the early 20th century, the American people thought, or some of the American people thought, that passing the Federal Reserve Banking Act was going to be a good idea. Once they passed the Federal Reserve Banking Act, what we saw is an increased amount of credit that was given to the American people. This ended up running up the prices in the stock market, which led to the 1929 crash, which then led us right to the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl, and then led to the New Deal, right? And then the New Deal changed the way that Americans viewed their interaction with government. The government was now seen as the entity that should be trying to provide welfare for the people instead of providing the structure of government necessary for free-thinking peoples and free-minded peoples to be able to make their own way in life without being reliant on the government. Now, because we have been living inside this system for the last 100 years, or 4 or 5 generations, people have become complacent with the idea of what true freedom actually is. They find themselves dependent on the dollar, which is being led to an increased amount of inflation now, to where gas prices have risen more than $1 in the last few months. Prices are going to continue to go up across all spectrums because it takes fuel in order to get your goods and services delivered to where you are. So, the reason why that there is polarization, right, is because you have these different parties trying to continue to divide the people rather than letting them come together and really find out who the real enemy is. And that is the problem.
All right. Sleeve.
That was a great little audio book by CTV right there. Truly, truly a great first act with a somewhat disconnected second act. So I was going to say the exact same thing that Olaketv was going to say. Is that Olaketv? Close enough. Okay.
Oleg, yeah.
Oleg, yeah, you said everything I wanted to say and more about Newt Gingrich. I honestly do believe, and I know that you have to be as old as CTV to remember these days, but there was a time when Newt Gingrich had totally changed the dialogue of the entire political landscape. I used to hear about times when politicians went to each other's houses, broke bread, had a drink together, and talked about impending legislation. And nowadays, that would never be the case. Nowadays, people are very at odds with each other. However, this also kind of comes into my anti-corporatist view, because I do believe that one thing that has totally agitated the partisan situation in Congress directly is the existence of super PACs and their ability to shape messaging through millions, sometimes it might even be billions of unaccountable dollars that come in towards messaging, which they can rally candidates around to a hyper-partisan message. I think that's one of the most troubling things. Obviously, that was paved the way for with Citizens United, and I think the most obvious symptom of that was the Tea Party immediately after, and the hyper-partisan messaging that they were able to focus in order to put candidates behind that message and then take over Congress very effectively. I think that that's kind of scary because, like I said, I do think that media, whether it's social media or various other forms of media, it's highly addictive. And I think that it can get people emotionally riled up. So when people start voting on issues that are basically funded by huge corporations that have unaccountable dollars, I find that to lead to a very, very hyper-partisan situation where people are going at issues that are basically handcrafted by the elites. So yeah, that's why I think that we're in a very bad partisan situation. It's basically like by design by the people with money.
All right. Just to be sure, Ryan, you already went? Yeah.
Yeah, I already went.
All right, perfect. In that case, yeah, let's go. Who is responsible for the polarization of Congress, Republican, Democrat, or the mainstream media, and why? Can it be undone? The floor is yours.
Just like a quick note to Oleg, when you mentioned the UK, like the more representative systems, we're also a shit show with polarization right now. So I don't want to big up the UK too much because we are also having very similar problems.
Yeah, and I think
I'd like to throw in some historical context for the United States. In the Western world, to my knowledge at least, this appears to be a relatively unique American phenomenon because of the Federalist Party, and I believe the Republican Party, in George Washington's time, actually, and the two-party system would have carried on since then.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely a good point to bring up, which is that, yeah, it's not like it's perfect everywhere else. It's definitely not. It is clear, though, that there's a little bit more of a representative effect that you have, at least arguably so, than the United States, where very clearly... Yeah. Like the problem we see in the United States is that, and it's hard to like explain to people that don't see it, but just like it's so not representative here. You literally have things that have 60, 70, 80% approval, and they just can't get voted on because, well, too bad. Republicans in some, and I'll be nice here, but let's say in a backwater-ish place like Wyoming can essentially choose to, they can do and decide on equal level to a place like California, literally based around, I guess, how many cows or how many acres per person, like some stupid-ass metrics like that. And so arguably the problem you're going to have is that there's just no representation. Now, maybe somebody will tell me that democracy is not a good thing or something like that. I'm sure, some of the horseshoe theory leftists or people, CTV or whatever, they're not good things. But arguably, in the United States, you see that our political system doesn't really regard personal liberty or personal freedom, even really in any meaningful way, literally because our political system is just broken.
I think two-party systems in general, they tend to lean towards give one party of what you can broadly call the left and another what you can broadly call the right. But the problem is that on the left, you have everyone from like AOC and Bernie Sanders to fucking cinema.
Yeah.
So you have like, Joe Manchin in cinema. So you have this like massive spread, and that's kind of unworkable.
There's a huge uniting force with the Republicans that I was going to bring up, which is the thing of Trumpism. Now, I would challenge, and I'm actually very curious about this to our Republican friends, is there a force in the Democratic Party that's as uniting and as devastating in the ballot box as Trumpism? I'm genuinely curious if anybody has an answer to that.
All right, so I'm actually not a Republican, but I
wasn't talking to you, pumpkin. Go back to your pumpkin corner.
Oh, not Republican,
shit.
But
wait, what are you talking? What are you talking about? You blaming it's the Republicans' fault for everything?
Hold up. I wanted to let Ryan wanted to talk, so I just wanted to.
I was mean.
I did some research on this prior, though. The main reason it appears that Trump has been a unifying force is that, like CTV, or I don't know, someone said, there's only been there have only been a few Republican. Actually, no. The Obama's term was a 2-term presidency, 8 years, and under this, the Republican Party had felt increasingly repressed, and well, that led to increased feelings of conservatism, to say the least. And so when Trump, a conservative, relatively more conservative candidate that was a very good populist candidate as well, came up and offered to become the presidential candidate for the Republican Party, I think that repressed feeling sort of embodied itself in Trump within the Republican Party.
Well, I think you hit two ends of the spectrum right there, because you said the populist Trump, which is 100% correct. In 2016, Trump was a populist. But I believe in 2020, he was much more a strong conservative. And I believe that he galvanized the conservative movement in a way that I was very surprised in. He went very, very hard on it. As a matter of fact, we were talking about Newt Gingrich. I'd argue that Trump was really a very polarizing president as well. He directly blamed liberal government, or liberal governors, liberal states, liberal cities. He used that as like evidence on why we should like withhold aid to certain states during the pandemic, for example. So he used hyperpartisan language in order to like actually like withhold federal dollars in certain very substantial stakes. I think that's very troubling, honestly.
No, what's troubling is that you think that there should have been more federal dollars put into it whenever that was not the original function of the federal government itself. That right there is, in fact, a problem.
Yeah, but the federal government didn't even have Social Security.
What year was that?
More people just died in the streets back in the day. I mean, I don't know if we'd want to go back to that, right? Would we want to go back to the world where black people were enslaved? I mean,
yes,
we
governments were different.
Say that. Come on.
Hold on. We go from welfare to black people being in chains.
These are how governments were constructed.
We definitely understand how your liberal mind works, though, right? We understand how your liberal mind works. Right. And this is why you need an education. So the fact of the matter is that the original function of the federal government was to defend national borders. Right. And to force cooperation between the states. Right. Now what we have is a federal government post-Civil War. Right. Because the original sin of slavery was allowed in the Constitution. What we have now is everybody pushing for protectionism in the law, when all that really does is serve to limit freedom of people. And by doing so, you create the types of government intervention that has college costs going up, healthcare costs going up, everything fucking costs going up. Because now,
interesting, red states use it the most. Isn't it interesting? Red states use that aid more than anybody else. The red states go into the federal coffers more than anyone else.
No, I also find it ironic that people are talking about polarization being a problem and then immediately proceed to blame the right wing and Republicans for a number of issues. So
because you have to do what's right.
I'm separating the idea that it's a right wing issue to be said. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, everyone is talking at the same time. I want to let Olake, and after that, Chris.
So when we talk about polarization, you have to talk about facts. It does no good to do this milk toasty, it could be all of us together. If we all just united and did kumbaya, we'd be great. Like, no, you have to look at the historical trends of, for a long time, government, even though there were two sides, they still did come together to govern. Yeah, they had knockdown, drag-out fights back in the days, all the way back to Thomas Jefferson and John Adams. They had those knockdown fights, but they did come together to govern. Now, what happened is, and what you saw is, it started in a populist movement with the moral majority. It was a big religious revival that happened in the 60s and 70s, but really started to get power in the 80s in terms of governance. And when you saw that movement happen, it was this idea that you just don't work together anymore. Shut down the government, because if you can shut down the government, people start to hurt. And when people hurt, maybe they blame it on the people in power. Maybe they blame it on the Democrats. And you started to see this happen. This was a fundamental move that took place in the way that the Republican Party shifted themselves. It doesn't mean that Republicans are bad.
It's not Republican or Democrat, like I said to begin with. It has a problem with the American people not understanding the system of government that's in place. What we've essentially done is taken all of the arguments that were supposed to be happening at state legislature level, and because via the 17th Amendment, we removed state legislature representation, right? We have now basically took every single argument that should be being had at the state level and having that at the federal level. And that is completely where the breakdown is, where you end up shutting down the government and et cetera, because look how much money that we're in fucking debt. And before you say the debt don't fucking matter, how much debt are you in personally? And does the financial situation of your household actually work any different than it does for the government? No, you have to have money coming in order to pay your fucking bills. We're $26 trillion in debt now. We continue to try to be the world fucking police. We continue to try to provide expansive fucking welfare programs across large parts of the state. We want to raise minimum wage. We want to do all of these things. But guess what all of these fucking things are? They're symptoms of a corrupt government that allowed central banking to be put in the United States. The last time that there was a shot made in this house with regard to this issue was between Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr. Sweet shot, Burr. Right?
National debt doesn't matter.
Wait. I want to throw it to Chris, and after that, I want to throw it to people who haven't spoken a lot. So yeah.
Yeah, CTV, I love you. I respect you. I just wish you would engage with the topic, because we are talking about the last 50 years of political polarization.
And I'm sorry that my history goes back.
Excuse me, CTV. We are talking about the past 50 years of political polarization in the houses of Congress, and you're busy talking about the government model from the 18th century.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm going to reread the question since you want to point out that there's supposed to be a framework. Who's responsible for the polarization of Congress, Republicans, Democrats, or the mainstream media, and why can it be undone? It ain't got a fucking thing said in there about no 50 years of history.
We got data to look at. Danabo sent us data
for the last 250 fucking years to look at.
It is such wait. Danabo sent you one article.
Let me address Ryan's point. So Ryan said, why are we talking about Republicans? So the reason is because the data we were given to look at, the Democrats are shifting very slightly in the last 50 years to the left, whereas the Republicans are, I think it's like 25% on whatever scale they're using to the right, which is atypical of what we would normally see with the Overton window, which usually shifts left. And I think we can kind of, recognize that because our farthest left people in Congress are advocating for universal health care, which is something that is just the status quo in other industrialized democracies. So our far left is not even meeting like what a European leftist would be. Meanwhile, our far right is talking about vaccine conspiracies, talking about Jewish space lasers, talking about QAnon and things like that. So even though there is a split and we can say, yeah, both sides, the left is moving left, the right is moving right. The left is almost to universal health care, while the right is all the way in Pizzagate. So the Republicans are becoming more polarized.
Okay, only one party tried to overthrow an election.
Republicans may be becoming more polarized, but again, we should be looking at the root cause here, which I think the most relevant being either the two-party system, which is unfortunately not on the options for some fucking reason, or mainstream media. And I'm going with mainstream media here because, again, I think that the media in general has played a very strong role in polarization because of the spreading of certain narratives. And we should be looking towards teaching people how to actually think for themselves and not just fall for some narrative rather than just blaming a certain party. Because what happened, and I heard something about...
Can you acknowledge that both of those things, the two-party system and the mainstream media, on average, help the Republicans more?
Oh.
Wrong.
I want to step in on this because this is something I was actually going to talk about. Left-wing media is terrible in relation to right-wing media. Right-wing media draws people together on common talking points. Like Tucker Carlson, for what reason is he the most watched national broadcast, aside from he spouts things that people can agree on and they all come together under these things, whereas you have leftists infighting, people on the left infighting over whether or not, what was the thing I saw on Twitter? This guy said that it was on the Hippy Dippy. Joe Lewis said that this Asian man was white. And I was like, are you kidding me? and you
God.
you don't understand why like the people on the right are pushed away from the left and then you have like left-leaning Congress people getting up and this is both sides. I think this is where the media comes into play. You have people in Congress speaking and they're giving a performance in front of these cameras, like they're trying to get clicks and they're trying to like. I mean, I don't know. I kind of rambled a little bit there, but.
I mean, you guys are jerking off Joe Lewis. I mean, he's at the level now of Tucker Carlson. Damn. I mean,
I'm not saying
this guy's got a lot of clout. Holy shit.
I want to comment on like the left-wing media in the US. Like, whenever I talk about Fox News, like someone inevitably comes in and says, "Oh, about CNN," and like CNN, this shit is the most milquetoast bullshit ever. Like, your left-wing media is like would be considered center.
I'm going to have to disagree with that, actually, because
really?
in one regard, when it comes to Trump, I think that CNN in particular had a very personal relationship with Trump.
It's more partisan over there.
Yeah, because the CNN president actually used to be Trump's one of his best friends and a big producer of The Apprentice. And then Trump split from the herd, and then they went to war. And I do believe there was some personal animus on CNN's side, and that does show in some of their reporting. Now, does it completely poison the well? No, but it is interesting when you watch CNN stories and you can see how Trumpism has poisoned some of the minds of the execs. I think it's kind of interesting. And by the way, I'd just like to say, not everything from the British media is perfect. You guys gave us Piers Morgan. That's all I got to say.
I'm not saying we're even good, right? We're fucking terrible. But like the American media is a bit of a different beast entirely. Like, American media is definitely more partisan. Like, they're more willing to say, like, yeah, fuck Trump.
You were saying that it's illegal to actually get too partisan on the air in Britain?
Yeah, we have Ofcom, which is like a regulator. So, like, if someone on the BBC News says, like, I hate Boris Johnson, he's a Tory cunt, like, that's not allowed at all. Like, the way that CNN reported on Trump probably wouldn't have been allowed either. They have to maintain a sort of balance. And it's really flawed because we're currently going through a bit of a shit show where the Ofcom, the head is like a Tory, and they're a conservative, rather.
So there's like a conflict.
That's why media literacy is important. Not going back to media literacy. That's why we need to look at objective news like Fox News, Breitbart. You know, the objective.
Yeah,
Fox
you have
is
to be
just
able
entertainment,
to
man. Fox News is just entertainment. Fox News
is a little left wing for me, but no, they do good work. You should check them out.
Newsmax is where it's at. I'm sorry.
I mean, where does everybody get their media information from when they go to the ballot box? Because that can maybe like determine like, you know, why Congress is the way it is. Like when we try to get information, like me personally, I actually do think that for the most part, the mainstream media, if it seems to be aligned on something or not going too far out into left field, is probably what happened that day. Now, I have friends who disagree with that. They say, oh, CNN said it rained yesterday. I would be suspicious of that claim because they've lied before. I don't agree with that. I think if it's like mostly reported in the mainstream media, then it's probably true because they'd be jumping down each other's throats to disprove that kind of stuff.
I get all my news from Hassan Abi and Vosh.
Isn't it amazing though? Sleep T, isn't it amazing? Isn't it amazing? You're talking about universal healthcare. Isn't it amazing that all these like media companies, with the exception of right wing, are agreed on universal healthcare? Most of these people in the higher levels of government are agree on universal healthcare. Yet most of the American people hate Democrats so much. They'll rather die in a car accident with no health insurance than vote for you guys. That's how unlikable y'all are. That's how unlikable. Isn't that?
I have a theory as to why that is. Is because I think that
2004 was the last time a Republican won the popular vote, right?
Yeah,
it's not that Democrats aren't popular.
They did it once in 30 years. Like, they're not the more popular party.
Yeah,
Republicans rally people around the children. That's why they are able to win elections. Basically, they're able to make everything about the children.
Another thing I want to bring up about the mainstream media is...
No, it's more about individual liberty. That's the reason why Republicans and conservative-minded people aren't for universal health care either.
What is the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida, then?
No, let's stay on topic. Let's stay on topic.
Let's
no, he's right.
Yeah, what is that?
A person in Wyoming is like it counts for 9 people in California. Isn't that personal liberty to be counted as more than another person around you? Yes.
You get more personal autonomy.
Exactly. This is the CTV brain power. Just everybody has more personal liberty than others. Who cares, right? Who cares about other people and their rights? No, just
what you're talking about is reappropriating taxpayer funds in order to fund this government-funded organization. That right there's the fucking problem. You want to say personal liberty when, in fact, in order for you to achieve this personal liberty, you have to enslave people to this fucking system by way of tax dollars.
Freedom ain't free.
You're right. So then the people need to be able to choose that for themselves rather than the government fucking doing it for them.
Wait, but do you want to know what polarization happened?
The country was built on people choosing for themselves what it is that they're going to buy, and it not being mandated by the fucking government. You want to do that? Do it in your state, not on the federal government level, which is exactly why most of these fucking panels don't ever get into the nuance between states and federal government, because you don't understand the last 100 fucking years of history and how we ended up in this situation from the Federal Reserve banking system. That's the whole problem.
What about the polarization that happened back when Jesus came? You know, because we stopped at 250 years. Why don't we go all the way back to the days of Jesus? All right, what happened then? What about the polarization there? And how did that?
The Pharisees were
wait.
You know what? You don't want to be frank about it. It led to the fall of the Roman Empire. Yeah.
But you know what, but Olaki, what CTV is saying, and this is how a lot of people in America feel, is that they reject the premise of federal government being the ones to decide all these things. Progressives in the left totally, this is a done deal. But if a large portion of your population, if a large portion of your population feels that way, maybe like, do they not deserve to be
minority?
Heard? But the minority, 40%, that's still a lot. That's still a lot.
I agree. It's a lot, but most people want the federal government to be responsible for universal health care in the United States. That's just the reality. Yes.
Yes, there's a poll done. There's an exit poll done after the election.
Okay, real quick. I want to pray to Blake. We're getting a lot of background noise from your band. Sorry. I want to pray to Olake, and after that, CTV.
The problem that we're losing sight of here is that we're talking about a polarization that happened, not people disagreeing with how a government can be run. That's always been accepted. The problem was always that in the old days, I mean, we'll talk 250 years ago, people came together and they might have had these knockdown, drag out fights, but they didn't shut down governments to do that. They didn't have media apparatuses. They didn't create an entire media apparatus so that Watergate wouldn't happen again. Right. This is the problem we're talking about. We're not saying that people can have disagreements. People can disagree on the federal government, the state government. You know, you can go back to the time when we said if we should have people, you know, have welfare or not. I mean, these are a million different things that people disagree on. And that's the problem I see here. It's like we're conflating the idea that disagreement is the same as what we're saying here, which is polarization such that you're literally shutting down governments. You have media apparatuses that have been formed to enact this will. And that's why I have a big problem when people blame it on the media, because the media is an outgrowth of that movement that happened. There was a movement to make people more polarized. And as such, you saw the media realize, like, wait, we can get in on this. And some of them were, in fact, funded by people who wanted this polarization to happen.
Also don't like how there's a conflation with like everybody should just be united with the idea that we should all just not want the government. This is the exact split between what left-wing and right-wing ideologies are about. We're not all just united about that. We have different views on what the role of federal government should be and how it affects like the state's roles as well.
Not a difference in left and right wing. It's not. Look, you guys are missing the whole point.
I know you said that. We heard it.
No, you want. Shut the fuck up! I didn't interrupt you whenever you just interrupted me.
Go ahead. We're all listening.
I'm waiting for you to shut up. There you go. Now, it's not a left wing, right wing fucking view of the government. The polarization that has happened at the time of the Civil War because slavery was allowed from the start. It changed the entire view of the way that people saw government. And now all these arguments that should have been happening at the state legislature level are now happening at the federal government level. The federal government was not designed to do what it is doing today. The polarization is the same thing that I'm arguing right here. Telling you the federal government shouldn't be involved in things, and you're saying that it should, and then what you're going to do is end up going back to the Civil War and reference history without any understanding of how the federal government was framed to begin with and what it was actually supposed to be doing. I got zero issue with the Constitution being gone back to from its original intent, with slavery being excluded, right? Like slavery not allowed. It's prohibited. You do that, you set up the framework for it. You do that, you set up the framework for the federal government to be building and maintaining post roads, providing and maintaining a Navy, et cetera, et cetera. These types of things that you would want the federal government itself doing. But the fact of the matter is that the same way that France and the UK and Spain and Germany and all these nations see themselves as sovereign, that's the way our states were intended to be seen inside this government system. The problem is that everybody sees themselves today as Americans first, right? And then their state second. To begin with, whenever the system was put into place, people saw themselves as a part of their state first and then American. That right there is entirely the problem that has led us to where we are today. Because now the 17th Amendment doesn't allow for the state legislatures to be involved in government because they now have direct vote via the individual. So the state legislature is not even represented, and the state legislature is the one that should be setting up the types of stuff, infrastructure in place to facilitate business to be able to be conducted so that people can continue to make fucking money. Not the federal government. It was never intended to do that. As a matter of fact, they had to go through a lot of shit in the 50s whenever Eisenhower went to go build the U.S. interstate system. You're all shaking your head and you don't even know what the fuck I'm talking about. That's the reality of the situation. You have no idea about the history, and yet you're on a panel trying to sit here telling me about the polarization of the parties, right? And you have no idea what actually polarizes the American people. None.
State government doesn't affect local business. I kind of tuned out a little bit.
Chris.
Actually, a lot of what CTV is saying is actually correct. I can verify on that.
All right, Chris.
Well, thank you for that.
I'm stunned, CTV. I think that was a great tirade. I'm curious, like, do you have any reason to believe, like, one thing you said was people don't view themselves as citizens of a state first. They view themselves as citizens of the nation first and then the state second. Do you have any reason to believe that's true, or that's just kind of like the vibe you get?
Well, it's absolutely true. If somebody asks me, hey, man, where are you from?
Okay. Evidence, please.
I say I'm from North Carolina, right?
Okay. So you just, so the one example we've got
if anybody,
is not.
If anybody asked y'all, especially considering most of y'all nowadays do most of your communicating on the internet, you say I'm American, right? Or that would be the.
I would probably say my state first. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're just making assumptions about the way people behave now compared to your assumptions about the way people used to behave.
An assumption. It's not an assumption. You all want to appeal to the federal government first and not your state government. So why you want to say and sit there?
Why do you say that? Why do you say that?
Was identify with your state first and then with your nation, right? And the difference today is that you first identify with the nation instead of the state. If you identified with the state first, then a lot of these ideas that you have, you'd be advocating for at your state level. But since you're not, and you're advocating for it at the nation level, then that lets me know exactly where your priority is. And I have to be the guy that comes up here from the state level to the nation level to tell you to take it back to your fucking state. And that's not the job of the federal fucking government.
I vote in my state elections. I vote in my local elections. I go to city council meetings. I'm more involved at the local and state level. Maybe other people aren't, but you're just making these wild generalizations about how things are now versus how they used to be.
Wild generalization, though. It's not.
Where's your evidence?
He just wants to go back to a world. He just wants to go back to the world where, people didn't have electricity and all of that stuff, because that's what a federal government allowed us to do. He actually wants to go back to the world where, you just have, we get burned down by Canada. We lose to Canada in 1812. Like, yeah. I love going back to that world, my friend.
And considering the way the Democrats are running this government and its foreign policy right now, there's a good chance that that's exactly where we're going to be if they don't slow their fucking roll on the world stage. That right there is a reality that we all could be facing.
How could we
just fucking bomb Moscow? Am I right?
Stage? I support your Canadian overlords.
We haven't put boots on the ground.
Again,
we haven't instituted a no-fly zone over Ukraine. Like, we haven't done a lot of things that could have escalated the war. I think we've been pretty level-handed. That's a Democrat win. Boom.
Can we bring it
I want to
back
talk
a
about
little
the
bit?
mainstream media.
Yes, please.
Go
ahead, because that's where I was going to.
So I was just saying, like, one big problem we have is the accessibility of journalism, and a lot, like, institutions that practice more journalism. Obviously, a lot of institutions do journalism and entertainment and editorial, whatever. Institutions that are trusted for journalism, like the New York Times, like the Washington Post, like the Wall Street Journal, have paywalls. And if you want to get information from a source that has a track record of better journalism, you have to pay. Meanwhile, you've got Fox News, Breitbart. I'm sure there are left sources that are not very good, that are easy to access. And so the quality of information we get is so much lower. And that, undoubtedly contributes to the polarization.
One thing that's absolutely going to affect the ballot box coming up here that I think about is the fact that with the entire Russian-Ukraine conflict, there's a lot of misinformation that's coming through some very shady channels right now. We talk about like how Telegram has been out putting out like a lot of bad information that's basically like been Kremlin agents putting it out straight through Telegram channels. And people are getting a lot of really bad information about Russia as a result of that. And that's absolutely going to devastate in the midterms this year, I believe. People are very animated about that issue, and they're being fed a bunch of bullshit by people who are paid propagandists.
You think Telegram's gonna make everyone vote Republican?
I think a Telegram will definitely like reinforce the views of a lot of Republicans, and I think that they'll reinforce like a lot of the views of the Kremlin in Moscow. I think that if they are taking advantage of these platforms and they're like very skilled at like putting out disinformation on this kind of thing, I think I've already heard a lot of people saying on social media stuff that I know is a direct talking point straight from Russia, and it's a little troubling. And I know that's going to play out in the midterms, and I know that's going to contribute even more to the hyperpartisanship.
It just comes back to, for me, the concise and what's the word I'm looking for? Targeted nature of Republican media, okay? Because one bad thing happens, one objectively cringe fucking thing happens, right? Like the kid who put on a skirt and walked into the girls' bathroom in a school, okay? And the Republican media takes that and runs so hard and fast and cohesively with it that now the massive Republican base of this country believes that schools are letting kids just go into like bathrooms to rape girls. That's what everyone thinks is happening in society writ large, because the media is so concisely delivering these common talking points, or like these like everyone is saying the same shit. Everyone is saying the same talking points on the right, so it drives it home so much better. And then you have people, and then you have left-wing media where people are fighting over like dumb shit, and meanwhile the right is banding together over something that's not real. Like they band over shit that's not real because they do it so well.
The right are far better at making outrage or manufacturing outrage than the left are, like significantly more so.
Yes.
In a lot of these cases, you can actually pinpoint the day that the right-wing media machine decided that critical race theory was a problem.
Yes.
Like those stories all happen all at once, or within the same week, and they just come from out of nowhere, because critical race theory was obviously never a problem, continues to not be a problem, and then the right-wing media machine decided it was a problem, and then in the course of a week it's a literally a national thing that people are voting on.
Yeah, like except it's literally not. It's literally not that critical race theory in and of itself is a problem. Most conservatives and Republicans will tell you that, like, hey, this thing being taught at a college level is just fine, right? But there's no reason to be putting that into the minds of children that are so young and just coming into the world and trying to just get a grasp of what's going on around them, right? They have to have a lot of trust and they have to have a lot of faith and trust in the teachers that are teaching the information. And the problem is that whenever you take something like critical race theory and you hand it to a teacher, right, that obviously has their own political biases, that's whenever the problems come up, whatever. And right at the same time, and you're absolutely right, we saw a lot of footage coming out of teachers actually segregating classrooms and, stand up if you're white, stand up if you're black, et cetera, and doing these things. And that's the problem. Parents don't want that shit being taught in kids. They don't.
Again, this isn't about whether you agree or disagree with CRT. We're talking about the mainstream media and how it contributes to polarization. And it is undeniable that the right-wing media machine decided that critical race theory was a problem, and that happened nearly instantaneously. So whether you think it's a problem or not, I don't really care. I'm talking about.
I mean, they decided it was a problem because they decided it was a problem because it played with the audience. The readers thought it was a problem to
Yeah,
for like
yeah.
Fox News. So
Yeah, and if you look at like
they're,
the
they're
search
responding
term,
to what people are outraged by already.
yes, I mean if you
But
look at the
that's
search
also-
history of a word, like you can see like CRT, critical race theory, jumps up at this massive spike, like Google search history, and like and it coincides with like when 5 Republican outlets release articles about CRT, and then it just goes nuclear for like a week and a half, and then it slowly trickles down to nothingness. You don't see anything about that anymore, and nothing has fucking changed. So it's like it's like manufactured fucking outrage over shit.
I mean, not
that is, like,
necessarily. If there's a story that's getting reported, and they're gonna write about that, and they're gonna talk about it for those weeks. Like it could it could be as simple as that. It's not
I was going to say,
necessarily
like, let me play
manufacturing.
devil's advocate here. You know, like we all agree the Republican media machine bad. If we were going to argue the Republican side, I think that they would maybe say that, like, well, most of the mainstream media is aligned on the other side of the issues, and they all have like a consensus view, and with their power combined with all those different outlets, they have a greater reach and view that is able to influence people at the ballot box. Do you think there's any merit to that?
Yeah, but I just don't think that they
That's
do
just
have
not
a
the
wider
reality.
That was the
There's-
entire rationale given back when Fox News was created. It was this idea like, hey,
They're in balance, exactly.
Watergate was bad for Republicans. Therefore, we should make a media apparatus so that Watergate can never happen again, so that a Republican president can no longer be impeached. And it doesn't mean that anything that they said is right. It's very clear that you see manufactured consent. We understand this concept. It happens in corporate media overall, right? That's what leftists hate. They hate the fact that progressives and in general leftism is disregarded by corporate media. So it's very clear that, yes, we understand the nature of it, but it's also important that we understand why that happened. We didn't see that happen from the left. The left didn't do that. We didn't see that the media was overwhelmingly liberal back in the old days of Walter Cronkite and all that stuff. What we saw was a very specific move by one faction within the United States media, within the United States political apparatus, to say we are going to have 100% coordinated efforts, both at the political level, at the media level, at the state and federal level, as CTV would like to talk about, to push certain ideologies that would polarize the country.
Like,
I would say right now, at this moment, right now, the left engages in so much polarization, and you could argue that, you know, the Republicans brought us to this point, but I think like the left has the opportunity to not engage with it, but constantly chooses to and refuses to work with people across the aisle, and not just necessarily in Congress, but in general. I saw like an interesting poll on Twitter. It was a couple thousand voters, and barely a majority of people said that they are friends with people who have different political beliefs than them. I think that it's very common amongst people on the left. Like the purity testing is out of this world, and I see why people on the right are so scared away or distrustful of the left, because in combination with how well Republican media portrays the left as being like crazy, the left is fucking crazy sometimes, and that is what becomes the loudest and blah blah blah.
And
I would like question those studies.
cultural dominance through cancel culture and things like that.
French.
Sorry.
I want to throw it to Ryan, and after that, I'll throw it back to you, Sleeve and Buns.
Yeah, so also I want to note really quickly, you said that you got this poll from Twitter, right?
Yes.
All right, so we have to keep in mind that Twitter basically serves as an echo chamber for political opinions. You're going to see much more politically extreme people on Twitter, and those people are going to be less likely to have friends on the other side of the aisle. So I don't think is exactly a completely reliable source for the average American's feelings on
I would
this.
say a random poll on Twitter that is barely a majority split is pretty indicative of something.
But again, we have to keep in mind the environment that this is taking place in, and we can't. And noting the environment this is taking place in, which is an essential political echo chamber, we can't rely on this as a credible source.
But how are you like? I mean, you can't like, you know, confirm those accusations of it's like an echo chamber, right? It's like, how do you know where? How do you?
Really had an entire.
Twitter people are fucking crazy. That is scientific.
Yeah, what Ryan is saying is because of the algorithm stuff we talked about earlier. If you're on Twitter, you're already more likely to be more polarized through that. So if we take a poll on Twitter, you're already biased towards people who are already receiving more polarized information.
Yeah, then I think that essentially like proves my point even so, because I'm saying that the left is like engaging in polarization. This is a left-wing This is a left-wing Twitter page that this poll is conducted on. So like a majority of people barely saying that they are friends with people across political aisle shows that a lot of people on the left, because it's a left-wing source, a lot of people on the left are not friends with people specifically because they have different political beliefs.
That's what you
Twitter
think.
poll is fucking useless.
A lot of people on
A lot
Twitter
of
on the
people
left.
on the left on Twitter, yeah.
The problem is people aren't actually that polarized. Like the left did the "let's not be polarized" thing in 2016. Remember when Michelle Obama said, "When they go low, we go high," and then they got blown the fuck out. The problem you see is that polarization does sell because the country itself has become so polarized. If you don't polarize yourself, if you don't push these narratives anymore, you get blown out because the polarization machine has proven to be very powerful in the sense that it builds out a base that comes out to vote. And when they come out to vote, because of the way that the two-party system is completely jacked up and completely broken, you can win with 30% of the vote because of disenfranchisement and all that kind of stuff. So the problem you have is that if you don't polarize as well, if you don't get your people out to vote, if you don't do the anti-Trump stuff and get everybody to look at that as an existential threat, you just lose because otherwise everybody just stays at home. And I think that you're seeing this effect where the left, in essence, is becoming more polarized, of course, but almost by nature of you have to do it because the political system punishes you for not being there anymore.
Yeah, so like then a comparison I would create is like, so then like your CNN is essentially required to scare the shit out of people out of COVID because the right is telling people that they shouldn't be afraid of COVID at all. So like you can't, that's why a lot of people have been like turned off from the left because of their rhetoric and in terms of COVID, right?
Are those equivalent things though? Like, is making a virus out to be totally safe and like advising caution? Like no, one of these kills 500,000 Americans and one of them doesn't. Like,
okay, but who died? I mean, we don't need to get into an in-depth conversation about COVID.
No, but Vance is bringing up a great point, which is what is polarized now because the Overton window is getting shoved that way, is that now these randomly generic statements like, hey guys, Joe Biden won the election is now a polarizing statement.
That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is the fact that
things seem polarized to you.
Reuters poll of Democrats. Just 1 second. A Reuters poll of Democrats says that 40% of Democrats think that 50% of people who get COVID end up in the hospital. So therefore, that leads me to believe that left-wing media is scaring the shit out of people because they don't actually. And it is wrong. But
it's not on the same scale as Republican misinformation, which leads to people like dying. Like these are not equivalent.
Let me try and play the fun little like devil's advocate for Republicans again. I think that like generally like Republicans would say that people's quality of life has been considerably decreased because there is misinformation about what the safest way forward with COVID is. And so people are saying, you know, they like to cite things like the excess deaths, suicide rates, depression, substance abuse that's gone up around the pandemic. And they use that as like a source for saying, well, you know, like people may be saving their lives because of COVID, but there's all these other things that we're not talking about that have just as detrimental an effect. So I guess in a conservative view, you could argue that, yeah, like some of this information could lead towards a very detrimental effect on society.
Yes, but the choice to not give people support to the pandemic, like financial insecurity is a huge thing in the pandemic. The option to not give people like some sort of like universal income or like rent support or whatever, that's a political choice that was made during the pandemic. Like,
yeah, and honestly, now they blame that too. They're saying that that's the reason why we have inflation right now. We gave too much money out. We have like this big problem with the U.S. dollar. We can't.
We printed 70% of U.S. dollars ever in existence in 2020. So I'm sure that does have some kind of.
It's a global fucking pandemic. They kind of had to do something.
I'm not saying that we shouldn't have done it, but we did it, and we have to acknowledge that it has an impact. But what I wanted to say, about the right wing versus left wing on COVID, I'm not saying that one is better or worse than the other, because it is. If I'm going to analyze that, it's objectively true that telling people that COVID is not bad at all is worse than telling people that it's really, really bad. But just like I was just combating Oleg's point of like, just because the right is being ridiculously hyperbolic to one side doesn't mean you have to go out of your way to scare the shit out of people on the left. And the reason why they were scaring the shit out of people was because it was profitable. So like there's an interview.
They're not to scale though. They're not equivalent things.
It doesn't matter that
this
they're
is a
equivalent.
this is a false equivalence in the sense that you're telling us that people on the media are like, yeah, if you get COVID, you have a 50% chance to go to the hospital. No one's ever said that. People
they believe that because of the media that they consume.
It. It doesn't matter if people believe something. It matters who is presenting that information.
It matters if they fucking believe it or
not. It does matter a lot. Hold on a minute.
No, it matters how you get there. Some people can believe something because they take things too far. It matters who is presenting the information.
You tell you why you're wrong. You're wrong because you assume that the media and the government have no power, when in fact the government specifically is the one with power, and the media has a lot of influence. So those two things put together with the amount of fear propaganda that gets put out about a virus that was, if you listen to the fucking media, boy, there should have been a fucking zombie apocalypse. Grab your fucking guns, grab your fucking mask, NBC suits, let's fucking go. That was what was being put out on the fucking media for what frankly turned out to be something along the same lines as the flu.
Right. Well, that was another thing. Every day, right there was that it was on the scale. All right, and it wasn't on the scale.
No, guys,
much larger.
I want to just.
I'm actually going to have to defend Olak's point here. For example, like it doesn't matter if people believe sources of whether or not something is true. Like it doesn't matter if everyone believed that the dollar's value immediately crashed to virtually nothing. That wouldn't matter, right, guys?
What? Yeah. Okay. Good.
I mean, by that logic, by that logic, Donald Trump has no responsibility for January 6th because they just believe that, right?
The problem I'm stating is that nobody on, like, go to Anthony Fauci's stuff. Tell me where he said that if you get COVID, there's a 50% chance you're going to the hospital. They never said these things. If you tell me that people are extrapolating out because they're uneducated about a subject, well, that's endemic of literally everybody learning at all times. How many people
nobody listens to just Anthony Fauci in a vacuum. People take this information through the channels that they take the information through.
Yes, and if you jump to conclusions, that's a very different thing than Fox News telling you that this thing doesn't matter. That's a very different thing because one is an authoritative source saying explicitly that this thing doesn't matter, it doesn't hurt you. Versus when you just listen to the news or whatever and you extrapolate it out yourself. One is your own, not being critically thinking, of course, like our friend CTV here. You're not thinking very much about it. You're just letting it happen versus you being told from a quote unquote authoritative source.
I can say you digest it wrong. You can do like the wrong thing with it. You have to have a better media literacy, I think is what you're getting at. And I do totally agree with that. However, what would you say if this information is being disseminated and it has an actual like measurable cost to what they are putting out? If they're putting out wrong information, it doesn't matter if like one's a good source, another is a bad source. If you only have better media literacy, you'd be doing better in this fight. Like, what if it actually has a cost where people are getting hurt because of the misinformation right here? I think that's the better question.
Yeah, great. And I agree with you. And that's exactly why we would criticize places like right-wing media where they will just say things. Donald Trump will say, hey, guys, the election wasn't real. Sure, right, maybe you don't take it as an authoritative source.
People are going to die from COVID is also a problem,
Because people did die from COVID. People do die from COVID. 1 million people have died from COVID. It's
saying more people, like 40-50%, like what we were
Nobody
talking
said
about.
40-50%. If everybody says,
why do people believe it then? Why do people believe it?
People believe dumb shit all the fucking
misinformed.
time.
You're acting like media,
everybody media presents it to them in a manner which is easily misinterpreted.
He just gave it away. He said because they were misinformed. Where did they get their information?
No, because
where did they get it? Oh my God, they got it!
Well, how
media!
You're so high right now, it's actually unreal how stupid it can get.
What was the number?
Point? We're let me get one last point, and then I'll give it a break. Okay. The problem that you guys are jumping around is the idea that people cannot they hear a thing, they don't do any research, they just sort of jump to their own conclusions. Now, the argument that I'm making is that what you have a very big difference between polarized media where they tell you, hey, trans kids are raping your, girls in the bathroom or something like that, explicitly saying that versus somebody saying like, hey, there's an uptick in crime, blah, 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 and then somebody jumping to a conclusion. that doesn't mean that the media is wrong for presenting actual facts. When the media says that you can die from COVID, that's all they're saying. When they tell you that you have a 99% chance, but that 1% chance is a lot more than normal for people to get, to go to the hospital, that's fine. Now, if people jump to conclusions, that's something else totally. That's what I don't understand, why we're unable to draw this understanding. Like,
there's certain
why are we still
information
here?
that's bad. And,
I wanted Chris. I think that. Go. Sorry, Geek.
I want to let Chris answer, and after that we'll go into closing statement for that topic, and I'll give it to you, Volp. All right, go.
Yeah, I just want a point of clarity, Volp. What was the number that believed? What was the stat you gave, basically?
I think this was a long time ago, and I don't have it committed to memory, but it was something along the lines of 30 to 40% of Democrats believe that about 50% of people who get COVID will be hospitalized from it.
Okay, thank you. So, Olake, in general, I agree with you. I think when the number is 30 to 40%. I'm guessing there's some kind of systemic issue. There's some responsibility that I think we can put on the journalists who are disseminating the information. If it's so unclear that 30 to 40% of people are getting, confused or jumping to wrong conclusions.
Yeah, and
I think they can do both, is what I'm saying.
And with that being said, we're going to go into closing statement for this topic, and I'm going to throw it to Volp.
Yeah, so I'll just close up by saying that I think that, you could draw this parallel to Donald Trump and January 6th, because I do believe that he holds responsibility for what people did. But if you look at what he specifically said on that day, he said, go there and be peaceful. He said, don't hurt anyone, shit like that, okay? But his rhetoric inspired this movement, and I'm not going to deny that whatsoever. So it leads me to believe that the left-wing media, the rhetoric, the way that they present data, misleading data, they're literally pictures from my misleading data fucking chapter of my class in college that were slapped on the front of CNN, misrepresented charts and data and shit like that all over the place. And they influence people to believe what they believe. And then that will tie me into saying that I think that the media is, in this day and age, in this current state, I'm not speaking to how we got here, but in this current state, I think the media is what drives the most polarization in our country.
All right. I'm going to throw it to Sleeve.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I'm glad that most of us seem to agree in the beginning about the origins of the polarization in the United States. The media diet, I think, is like where we might have a little bit more of a disagreement in this discussion. Personally, I think that misinformation, no matter how reputable the true source of it is, I do think that like media ecosystems do bounce around in a way that gives people like a demonstrable reason to feel upset and sometimes go off in bad directions with information they don't fully understand. I think that's bad on the left and the right. And I think that honestly, like we still do see like a bigger polarization on the right. That's my opinion right now. But I think that this is something that won't get better if we don't have a true dedication towards good information in the media ecosystem. So that's why I'd just like to say, nobody should believe as big a bullshit as some of the stats that we were dropping here. I think that we all need to do our homework a little bit better. So yes, I think that the bottom line for here was media literacy. I agree with that phrase 1000%. Let's do better at reading the news, guys. That's all I gotta say.
Ryan, you'll be able to shout yourself out right now. Yeah.
Oh, right this second. Oh, yes. And my name is SleeveTRocks. I'm on Twitch TV. Oh, are you telling me not to? What should I do? I'm on SleeveTRocks on Twitch, and you can also see me on Twitter there and follow me. Yeah, I do politics, horror games, and rock and roll music.
Oh man, I wondered how many times it take for me to show that sticky note for to finally point that out. Yeah, you can. Yeah, but again, we discussed a lot about mainstream media being inherently biased and polarizing, and that's a very bad thing. Which is why people should subscribe to the American Tribune to get the only source of reliable information in the world. As you can trust me, I am based. You can trust a guy wearing a mask like this. All right.
True. And yeah, since
would you like me to give my closing statements at the same time, or?
Yeah.
All right. So, essentially, I think we should be targeting mainstream media and the two-party system itself, rather than focusing primarily on either wing. And that the best way to fix this is to create a culture of political discussion and institute extensive political education. So again, people can actually think for themselves and have greater media literacy as a side effect.
All right. I say the shout out thing as a joke because I saw you holding your little sign, but actually that's a good idea. Volp, where can people find you?
People can find me on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube at HoodieVolp. I stream. Oh, and TikTok. Don't forget TikTok. Please go there. I stream on Wednesdays and Thursdays at 9 p.m. EST. I do this cool panel where I bring on normies and we talk about the hot button political issues and we bring in a normie perspective and I use my crazy left-wing liberal brain on some typically conservative normies.
Would be happy to give a normie perspective sometime. Just
yes, please. Sure. Yeah, hit me up.
For sure.
All right. I'm going to throw it to Bounce.
Yeah, so I think I've actually changed my opinion through the course of this. I'm now just going to say that like it's the Republican Party's fault, it's the right's fault, Mitch McConnell is the fucking Antichrist. Yeah, more or less. The media has a huge part to play in this, and you can try on both sides it all you want, but one side said people are dying, and the other side said fucking drink bleach or whatever it was to cure COVID. It's bullshit. And the right wing has a lot to answer for.
All right. And where can people find you?
They can find me on Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch at Bants Ferdinand. That's Bants with a Z. Ferdinand. I talk about old games, history, and I get irrationally angry at UK politics.
All right. Olek.
Yeah, and I think we kind of demonstrated it here. I mean, there's the historical aspect of where polarization came from, and you can very clearly link it to the facts of what we saw in terms of the moral majority and the way that Newt Gingrich sort of hijacked the political system. So it's very clear we understand those concepts. We can take a long journey if you want, like the CTV, and go back to the age of Jesus or the age of, I guess, aliens or Egyptians or something. I don't know at this point, and to figure out where the foundational aspects of polarization come from. But it's very clear that historically we know where it is. Now, if you want, and I saw a lot of people blame this thing where it's like, okay, sure, there's some polarization on the left. Yes, we get that. There's no misunderstanding that there's polarization today. It exists in social media. It exists among the left. We get those things. But if you want to talk about how you're going to fix polarization, you need to be very clear about why it's happened and why it's so bad today. Now, we never really talked about the reform aspect, and that's where we do need to say that the American system has to be better able to handle it, and we haven't done anything there. So again, a quick reform system is to potentially get rid of a first past the post voting system, because it arguably leads to a place where you do have a very quick polarization, where if you can keep things at a 50-50 split, you always have a chance of winning, and that's arguably how the parties are centrated right now, and that leads to a bad situation. So arguably, again, like I didn't see anybody state anything otherwise except like, oh yeah, I think the left does polarization too, but that's inconsequential when you talk about the origin of something and who's the main proprietor of it and why polarization needs to continue to exist within the system as it's constructed. And I guess, yeah, you guys can see me over on Olake on YouTube or Olaketv and on Twitter and Twitch.
All right, I'm going to throw it to Binks.
Yeah, I don't think technology is making us dumber at all, and I think calculator watches were the best type of watch. You can follow me at Mitch McConnell Stan on Twitter.
All right, CTV.
It's been a pretty good show, ain't it?
Yeah,
very true.
It has been a good show. So I could address, some of the things that were said during the show, but I just want to say to everybody, I appreciate y'all's participation and being here tonight and having a good time with us here on the Hippy Dippy Recruitment Show.
Hell yeah.
That said, I facilitate a community called the Infinity Acre Wood. It is recommended for all content creators, right, that are associated in the space to come in and be a part of the family, right? We've got two specific categories in the Discord called IEW Text and IEW Voice. I made two separate categories for text and voice communication, so it'd be easier for people to maximize and minimize categories and maybe help teach people how to use Discord a little bit better, more efficiently. That said, if you're a content creator, right, come over here and go through the process of becoming a representative, and you can get your own text channel so that you can be communicating not only with me directly and everybody else that's in the community, but be able to help everyone continue to grow, right? Because as you lefties say, through the centralization of things, it ends up becoming like more of the collective good. So it seems like, that's kind of the idea that needs to be had. And now I see we got this fucker that's came in the room.
Are you trying to sell them on them? What the fuck did I walk in on?
I don't know what the hell this guy's doing here, but it's clearly because we're going to be talking about food, right?
True. I happen to be a food expert.
Exactly.
All right, real quick. So yeah, CTV finish, and after that,
Yeah, so you can find me twitch.tv/critically thinking veteran, and come join the Infinity Acre Wood Discord. We got a lot of good things going on. We got about 500 people that's part of it. It's continuing to grow. You should definitely be a part of it. Freems is there. So is Mr. Geek. So is a lot of these people. So if you got friends, bring them through.
You had me until Freems.
Wow. Who the fuck said that? Who said that?
That'd be Yellow Plaid in the bottom.
Yellow Plaid in the bottom.
All right.
He moved me right out of the way right when he was looking for me.
Real quick, before we jump, I want to continue with the ending statement. Chris, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I think it's all a chicken and egg. I think they all contribute to each other. But with the three things that we were asked to look at, the Republicans, the Democrats, and the mainstream media, mainstream media is always driven by profit motive. Polarization might be a happy accident, but ultimately, if they can make money, they're going to make money. Democrats are moving closer to where Europe is, so again, to the right of the rest of the industrialized world. And then the Republicans are taking active measures to suppress voters and take advantage of all those anti-democratic mechanisms that I mentioned earlier. So, I think they're all contributing, certainly, but I think the only one that is really doing it intentionally and to further their agenda would be the Republican Party. I'm Chris A. You can find me on YouTube, Chris A. XHRISA. Thank you.
On Twitch?
Not on Twitch. I'm not on Twitch.
Not
yet.
Chris, I have a question for you. What kind of box is that behind you that does all of the light and everything?
Yeah, so that is a Roland TS-08, I think. It's a modern remake of the 808 drum machine.
I got the 808 behind me. Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah.
That's all Geek cares about.
I was distracted by this the whole show.
He was thinking about that the whole time, I could tell. Yep.
Yes.
Hey, if you guys need a guitar track to any of that, I got you right now.
All right, that's it. We're going to organize the Hippy Dippy band. Frims, thank you for joining us. How are you doing?
Yeah, of course. I'm doing good. Also, I'm not only a food expert CTV, but the recruitment show never has topics about fucking people's moms. So I only get to talk about food here.
Yeah. I can,
You'd be shit out of luck if that was the case.
I can understand the appeal, right?
Yeah.
My mother's a wonderful woman.
And with that being said, we're going to jump into the last topic, which is a fun one. Can you name one healthy food that doesn't taste like cardboard?
That doesn't taste like what?
Cardboard.
Cardboard.
Yeah.
Cardboard.
Listen, I'm French. Sorry. Yes, hell. Blame it on the language. And with that being said, I'm going to start with Binks.
Yeah, there's lots. Strawberries, cantaloupe, bananas are pretty good. How many do I have to list?
No, keep going. Keep going.
Okay, just those three.
Oh.
We can make this a drinking game. Drink while you think.
All right. Sleeve.
Anything that doesn't taste like cardboard? No. Everybody who said that vegan food is all rabbit food was correct. I stand by them 100%.
All right. Bans.
Pineapple, especially on pizza.
Oh no! All right, it's been nice. See ya.
I like this person. Pineapple does belong on pizza.
Thank you. It's objectively correct.
I can go into the scientific reason why.
No,
But
stop.
I digress.
I'm going to ban people. All right, Volp.
Yes, please.
Ban me, daddy.
Yeah, but that shit does not. There's some good food, right? I like chicken, rice, and beans myself. I'm a big chicken, rice, and beans kind of guy. It's a pretty healthy meal, but that has no sugar in it. That gets my brain high as fuck. So I tend to stick to the extremely high sugar, high fructose corn syrup diet.
There you go.
All right, Ryan.
All right, so don't ask me how I know this, but pumpkin, I hear, are very tasty. Especially
Pumpkin is fucking
pumpkins on
disgusting.
pizza, I hear.
Is that cannibalism?
You shouldn't be telling people to eat pumpkins on this panel.
No, he's talking about
I'm just
the other
saying what
way
I've
of
heard.
eating. He's going to
That's
give
all.
you a little bit of pumpkin on the inside, you know?
Okay.
All right.
Open wide, my friend.
No, Chris A.
Yeah, I'm of Mexican heritage, so I got to go with rice and beans.
Nice.
That's all you need, baby.
All right. Who didn't go? I'm sorry.
I can go.
All right.
Yeah. I was trying to think of one where it's like you don't have to add salt and things to make it good. One that I'll just generally say is like a good tomato. It tastes really good. Get some sweetness on that. I argue that if you have a good, like a tomato, you can eat that at any moment. Doesn't need anything else on top of it. Real good.
All right, CTV.
Question is, name something for you that is healthy that doesn't taste like cardboard. Well, there is certainly one thing that comes to mind, and that's pussy.
I knew you were going there. I knew it before you said it. I was like, CTV's gonna say pussy. I was hoping I would get to go before you because I was gonna say ass. So
More specifically, your mom.
You know,
Hop off,
like,
hop off.
yeah. Well, I don't know which way the cameras are because I'm back. Is it this way?
Yeah. There.
Okay, there we go.
Nope. But okay, nice try.
All right, Frims.
I already said it. Ass.
This is why we can have anything good.
Oh wait. Ass, strawberries, cantaloupe, and banana.
That was already named though.
Yeah, but I added ass to it.
Did you rank those?
At the same time.
Yeah,
Well, you
those
should
are in
have just
order.
included. You should have just included like whipped cream. It's like 0 calories, right? So not necessarily bad for you.
So is ass.
Yeah. I feel like there's not a lot. I can't name a lot of foods that taste like cardboard. That'd be even more difficult for the
True,
topic.
that's a good point.
Matzah.
All right.
Have you ever had matzah?
Bread.
Who didn't go so far? Is that people? So, all right.
I hear
You can
French
engage.
bread. I hear French bread kind of tastes like cardboard.
Ooh.
What about French? What about French ass?
Noah's
This
coming to the
wonderful
defense.
topic was brought to you by Danabo.
Thanks, Danaba. This is your fault.
Quality work.
I mean, he set it up. That's like, he knows he's a good pitcher, right? He set that all up. He was like,
Can we challenge the notion that it's healthy to eat ass? Because it could be very unhealthy.
It is 0
depending.
calories.
But it can be unhealthy. But
Zero
it's good,
calories could
it's
give you
good for-
some bacterial problems.
it's good
It
for
could
the
be sugar-free
spirit.
as well.
It's good for the spirit,
Oh, for sure.
and it's good for building a healthy relationship.
It's good for your tongue muscles.
Those things are healthy. Also, can I add something else real quick? The pumpkin mask dude, still not as scary as the dude last week who said that he likes nutrition paste or some shit, whatever. That guy was scary.
What is nutrition paste?
That's what he said. If he would get rid of food altogether and just eat nutrition paste.
Like
They
that
would
shit
just,
from
inject
Snowpiercer.
paste into you?
I don't know. He was scary.
when you start doing that, like if you ever drink like a Soylent or something and try that for like a few days, yeah, you're going to be running back to food eventually. I don't know if someone's ever maintained that. Like it's not enough. So
I did the meal replacement shakes for like a couple of days, and I was like, nope, never again.
Yeah, you go back and then you eat like a pizza or you eat something that actually has like a bite to it, and you're like, dear God,
Yeah.
this is actually
Yeah.
this is the best thing I've ever. Like, this is amazing.
What is
Mr.
the
Geek has this look of defeat on his face because of me and CTV. I can just see it on his face.
Bad
It's making me
influences.
laugh harder.
I hate every part of this.
How about semen? Semen doesn't taste like cardboard.
Oh,
That's
God.
healthy. It's a lot of protein, right? It's all protein.
Hey,
Good
I'm gonna
protein.
be
I
honest.
think it's about 100 calories.
Yeah, I think nut is a healthy, balanced.
A healthy, balanced diet, right?
Yeah, one of this,
what?
one of that.
I always hear nuts and berries, so
Pick it up.
like,
Nuts and berries.
I'm gonna have to be honest with everybody that just got through commenting. I wasn't actually like I learned some things about y'all, right? Apparently, y'all all know what jizz tastes like, right? And I'm on the outs on this one, so y'all got it, okay?
Yeah, I didn't
Understand.
realize that. I just admitted that.
you never wanted to try your own brand.
You've never wanted to
No.
try your own brand.
You never
No.
have.
Never
is
been
the real
sustainable.
question.
You never tried sustainable food sourcing.
You got to try
No.
it.
Comes
You
right
got
from
to
you.
try it.
Factory to
Wow.
farm to
Mhm.
farm to table.
Eek, what have you done?
Blame Denabo. I don't take any responsibility for this. I'm just
Okay.
the host. I'm just
Okay.
here to make sure that everything is going well. You choose where you take this. This is on
Both
you
sides, both
and on
sides.
Denabo.
Also, I've been told that actually CTV is a liar because he was in the Navy. So we know what they do in the Navy. So actually, he's a liar.
Yeah, they provide
You can sail the 7 seas.
Yeah, we provide the strategic
It's gonna put your
deterrence,
mind at
right?
ease.
That blanket of freedom that you sleep nice and snuggled with every fucking night. That's what the fuck we did, right?
I don't know a lot about the Navy, but I know a lot about semen.
Hmm.
Ha ha.
Brutes.
Do you know how many calories they have?
It has between. We looked this up the other day on my stream. I think it's between 5 and 30 calories per teaspoon or tablespoon. I can't remember. Between
Per
5 and
teaspoon? Is that how they measure it?
I only go in cups.
I measure it.
I go by
Go by
cup, right?
cups. You might.
Yeah.
That seems
I'm
really
learning
high.
a lot right now. I honestly don't know about caloric intake or teaspoons or any of this stuff. You guys are teaching me a lot right now.
Sorry. I mean by pint. Let's go with that. Yeah, by
Okay,
pint.
that's
though, right,
better.
guys?
By a pint. Jesus Christ. Why don't we just go by Otter Pop sleeve?
or
If I
by
knew what that was.
or we could go by cum sock.
Oh, yeah, that's a good metric as well. But then again, they're the short
Now
socks
that
versus
tastes
the
like
long
cardboard.
socks. So.
Let me tell you,
Yeah, there
that
you
tastes
go.
like cardboard.
It feels like cardboard.
For any particular reason or personal reason. But what if we used Lay's chips bags? I've never tried this personally. I promise.
It seems
Okay, so the only thing that I know of that tastes like cardboard is the pizza that I was forced to eat in high school when Michelle
Yes.
Obama came into
That's
office.
where
when
pizza-
Obama came into office.
The health
They
food
changed
pizza.
my beautifully fluffy, nice, flavorful pizza into like a 1/4-inch thick piece of like cardboard with like cheese scrapings on top of it. That is cardboard right there. But it's healthy,
know,
so
man.
it's okay.
Did you say that Michelle Obama did that to you?
Yes, she did.
Thanks a lot, Obama.
How dare she
Yeah.
want to make
Fucking
me
Obama.
healthier?
You know what Obama stands for, right?
Oh God.
I would love to know.
One big ass mistake, America.
Yeah. I saw that.
I had somebody tell me the other
And
day
his
the only
name
reason they
was
voted
Donald
for Obama.
Trump.
Oh. I had somebody tell me the only reason they voted for Obama was because he was black, so that was a good clip.
Hmm.
What did you say to them?
I mean, he
I
was the
said-
most black when he ran, so.
Just
This is
for
true.
the,
I said you ain't black if you don't vote for him. So
I've only got
They
3
broke his black
words.
card.
I got 3 words for y'all. Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go.
right on, brother.
Fuck Joe Biden.
and I got
Yeah,
the
Even
bunch
Joe
of
Biden agrees
say.
with that statement.
French.
Even Joe Biden agrees with that. They called him in. They were like, "Let's go, Brandon." He's like, "Fuck yeah, let's go,
Hey,
Brandon."
he said French.
I shouldn't have
Okay, I
to
got
say
another one. Has anyone?
French,
has anyone
French,
ever-
French, French.
unbelievable.
Wait, was that a fake?
The
Yeah, that was a
dis-
fake
Just one more
out.
thing.
I'm muting people. Oh my god. I'm muting everyone. All right. I got a bunch of words for you. Can you name a healthy food that doesn't taste like cardboard? Cardboard. All right. Anyway,
Has anyone had boiled peanuts?
Can't believe you
Well,
muted me.
Yeah, they're really good.
They're delightful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really good.
Sounds very British.
Good protein. It's southern, actually. It's a southern thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boiled peanuts.
They kind
How
of
do you
taste
stir-
like
how do you stir
little.
them?
They taste like little balls of potatoes, kind of like they're real soft.
You can
Do you
also
like eat them
put
with a
them in
spoon,
Coke.
or
You put peanuts in Coke.
Do you guys at least
Georgia is a weird place, let me tell
What
you.
part of Britain boils peanuts?
I don't know. It just sounds like something that you guys would do up there. Like, just intuitively. You guys do some weird stuff with food. I got nachos in Britain, and you guys put marinara sauce on it.
Yeah.
I learned that
What's to
British...
do haggis?
Maybe Bans can confirm this for me, but I learned that British people call crepes pancakes, and they don't have what American people call pancakes.
Yeah, like, because it's just like a... Yeah, basically, yeah.
Oh, that's...
And they call
tortillas.
tortillas
You don't get to enjoy
tortilla
the
wraps.
actual pancakes.
What do they call tortillas?
Tortillas.
Tortilla wraps.
Tortilla wraps.
I don't trust British people ever since I found out you don't actually drink tea during tea time. It was a lie.
How dare you?
My whole life.
Where are the Canadians at?
They just call them tortillas. Or tortilla wraps, like they're interchangeable.
Yeah, I've seen them marketed as tortilla wraps.
I've
We
called it a
do
tortilla
deep fried
wrap
chocolate,
before.
though.
I've never.
It tastes fucking awful. Don't do
Yeah,
it.
well, like, do you like coat it in anything, or is it just like chocolate?
Yeah. So basically, you would go to like a fish and chip shop, and they get like a Mars bar. I don't know if you have those over there.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
there's the controversy over that too. That's actually like a Three Musketeer in the United States or something. I was talking to my British friends about this, but yeah, go on. Sorry.
Yeah. So they get that, and they just sort of like deep fry it in the place where they usually put chips or fries.
Yeah,
or whatever.
fries.
And then they just give it to some fucker, and they eat it for some reason. It tastes
Interesting.
ghastly. It's repulsive.
Does it
I love my
taste like
country.
fish? Like, do you get the fish on it?
That would improve it. It tastes so bad that like at least the fucking fish would give it some sort of pizzazz. But no, we also deep fry pizza.
Yeah, but do you deep fry ass? Sorry.
Only on Thursdays.
Nobody laugh. Nobody laugh. He did that already.
Geek's face.
I
Geek's face
can't.
that was
I
enough
can't
to make
not
me
laugh.
laugh.
It's too good.
Oh wow.
Deep fried ass.
Wow. Just so you guys know, right? Unicorn dicks were just exploded from my face, and then now they're covering your face right now. Just so you know.
What does that
roasted.
mean? This is very
Unicorn
cryptic.
dicks.
Are you having a stroke?
How many calories?
All right.
Again,
This is a good
How
time
many
to.
calories
Okay.
per cum sock?
Yeah. Rein it in here.
No. We're getting out. We're taking the exit.
But I just got here.
No. Well,
Let me
that's
out,
your
please.
fault. And then I buzz. But anyway, before we end, I just wanted to thank you all for being here. Except for that last topic. But yeah, thank you all for being here. So everyone in everyone's chat, go give a round of follow, support the content creator that you see on the panel. Whether you agree or disagree with them, go engage with their solo content. Go check out what they do outside of panel. It's always a surprise. Most of the time, good. So yeah.
We don't always talk about cum socks.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah.
It gets brought up like at least once a stream every time for me.
Oh boy, I'm looking forward to joining the community, man.
The culinary art of deep fried ass.
And also, before we go into closing statement and shout out, I just wanted to say that if you're here, it's because you got an invite from Danabo. So go support the lad. He's doing a wonderful work behind the scenes. So twitch.tv/Danabo, shellshockcbd.com, enter code Danabo to get 10%. And yeah, Hippy Dippy Recruitment every Sunday 6 p.m. EST. Hippy Dippy main show every Friday 8 p.m. EST on twitch.tv/JamBudsTV. Go check out the two. Go give a follow if you want. If you don't want to miss an episode. And yeah, let's go into closing statement and also tell people again where they can find you, who you are. And we're going to start with Buns Ferdinand.
My closing statement is that pineapple on pizza is the superior pizza topping. It has only 100 calories per cum sock, and it's nutritious. It doesn't taste like cardboard. Bance Ferdinand, you can find me on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube at Bance Ferdinand. And Slava Ukraini.
Yeah. Binks.
Shit, I didn't prepare anything. Hey, I'm Binks. Thank you for that.
Get off Apex.
Perfect. CTV.
What was the thing?
Closing statement, shout out.
Obviously, pussy is the thing to eat, right? It's healthy for you, right? It's going to end up sparking more exercise, right? Which is good. You're probably going.
We're missing some valuable facts.
Lost him, yes.
If only the champion could actually have good internet. Maybe he's not worth being champion anymore.
07.
What was the point of the
Shots.
federal
Shots.
government?
All right. We'll be waiting for CTV to come back, but in the meantime, frames.
All right, so I got the logistics down behind deep fried ass. They make these molds where you can make a chocolate mold of your butthole. Take that, deep fry that, and technically, I would say I'd feel comfortable calling that deep fried ass. So it's out there. Maybe I'll try it. Maybe I'll eat my own ass. But yeah, twitch.tv/frames. Follow me if you want to watch me eat my own ass. And I fucked your mom.
This is why we bring frames, for the true expertise, like he brings the knowledge to the table.
I thought outside the box there. You gotta think.
Yeah. Like you get like other guests, normal guests for the entertaining part, and we get frames for the educational. Anyway, I wanted to pray to HoodieVolp.
Yeah, I'm HoodieVolp on TikTok. Follow me on TikTok, please. I'm an up-and-coming rising star on TikTok. Follow me on Twitch. I stream on Wednesdays and Thursdays, 8 to 9 p.m. EST, and we talk about current political issues with normies and then memes. And YouTube, TikTok, Twitch, Twitter, all the good stuff. HoodieVolp. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right. Olay.
Yeah, I think all I want to say is, you guys can come catch me over on YouTube under Olake, or on Twitch, Olaketv, Twitter as well, Olaketv. So I hope to see you guys there. I do a lot of leftist political content. By and large, just to keep in mind, I'll just put it out there. Obviously, CTV left because he was afraid of me. I'm calling him out. We'll see if the shot ever comes, but maybe he'll do it. Maybe he'll be able to accept this challenge. But as far as I'm concerned, he's a paper tiger, a fake challenger up-jumped by a corrupt system that Dylan Burns put in place to put another one of his own little stooges in there. So Danabo, please fight back against this. Mr. Geek, fight back against the injustice of a...
Oh, it seems that we lost Olake. He seems to have a technical issue and everything. No, I'm joking. Where can people find you?
Yeah, just Olake on YouTube and Olaketv on Twitch. Thanks a lot.
All right, I'm going to pray to Ryan.
Yeah, so I think that pumpkins on pizza are a pretty good meal, and I would also like to say to CTV as well, I would like to talk to him sometime after this about some of the stuff he said, since I find it interesting. And you can find me on the only reliable source of information on the internet regarding political content on the American Tribune, where I try to be as unbiased as possible in the beginning and just give my own 2 cents at the end.
And by the way, since I don't know if he'll come back in time, you can find CTV on twitch.tv/critically thinking veteran. He dropped the link earlier in my chat and in Danabo's chat of his Discord, discord.gg/infinityacrewood. So yeah, go check it out if you want to talk with him or anything. Or if you want to battle the main Hippy Dippy champion, yeah, you know where you can find him. All right, SleeveTRocks.
Yeah, I think that Olake might actually have a shot at that Hippy Dippy championship now that we've seen CTV in real time run away scared from the superior debate bro prowess. So I think that we are going to see a new dawn upon this channel very soon. My name is SleeveTRocks. I am a rocker boy. You can see me on twitch.tv/SleeveTRocks. I talk about everything from commentary of rhetoric. I talk about political ideology, but I also play music and do guitar practice, as well as playing horror games and talking about the dark side of life. So you can see all of that. Also, I'm on Twitter at SleeveTRocks as well. So give me a follow. I'll follow you back.
All right. Chris A.
Hello. First off, I want to apologize to Danabo. I didn't realize he was watching with a literal child on his lap for that past conversation. Sorry, Danimo. But also thank you to Danimo, thank you to Mr. Geek, thank you to CTV, and to all the panelists. I had a great time. I'm Chris A. I'm a lefty YouTuber. I talk about music, movies, and mathematics, and lefty politics, of course. You can find me youtube.com/XHRISA or twitter.com/XHRISA_. I'm not on Twitch yet.
All right. And yes, you should all feel bad because you exposed a child to this discourse. Exactly.
Disgusting.
Even if Danabo got headphones
Education.
and like everything, no, you should feel bad.
We're on the family-friendly arc now.
But
Kids should learn about deep fried.
that being
stuff.
said, I wanted to thank you all once again for being here. Quick question: who's live on Twitch and who's going to stream for a while?
I'm
No
going to
one-
stream for the 30 minutes. That's it.
Yeah,
I
me
stream
too.
on weekdays. Put me on the auto host list.
All right. But yeah, thank you all for being here. I'm going to say goodbye to my chat and raid one of you. And yeah, take care, people. See you around.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Peace out, guys.
See ya.